The Stargate's event horizon rippled like mercury given consciousness, a vertical pool of impossible physics that defied every principle Tony Stark thought he understood about matter and energy. He stood in the gate room of Stargate Command, 28 levels beneath Cheyenne Mountain, watching the seventh chevron lock into place with a resonant clang that vibrated through his chest. The kawoosh, the initial unstable vortex that could atomize anything in its path, erupted outward in a cascade of blue-white energy before settling into that perfectly stable wormhole. 38 minutes of connection to another galaxy, 3 million light-years away. Still time to back out, Stark, Colonel John Sheppard said, adjusting the P-90 strapped across his chest. The Air Force officer had the kind of easy confidence Tony recognized from Rhodey, military through and through, but with enough maverick in him to break rules when it mattered. Pegasus Galaxy's a one-way trip until we get the gate powered back up on the other side. Tony tapped the arc reactor beneath his shirt, its blue glow visible through the fabric. I've got a nuclear reactor in my chest and I fly around in a metal suit fighting aliens. You think a little interdimensional travel is going to scare me off? Intergalactic, Dr. Rodney McKay corrected, not looking up from his tablet. The Canadian astrophysicist had been insufferable since Tony arrived at the SGC 2 weeks ago, brilliant, absolutely, but with an ego that rivaled Tony's own and none of the charm to make it tolerable. The Stargate creates a stable wormhole through subspace, connecting 2 points in our dimension across space, not dimensions. And it's not a little travel, it's 3 million light-years. If you're going to join the Atlantis expedition, at least get the basic physics right. Right. Basic physics. Like chevron-encoded addresses using constellations as spatial coordinates and somehow accounting for stellar drift over millions of years. Tony hefted his pack, which contained the Mark VI armor in its portable configuration, not the full suitcase version, but compressed enough to transport. Jarvis was running quietly in his earpiece, monitoring everything. Totally basic. General Jack O'Neill, hands in his pockets with that deceptive casualness that meant he was paying attention to everything, stepped forward. Kids, play nice. Stark, the IOA approved your assignment as civilian engineering consultant. Your job is to help McKay with ancient technology research and power systems. The arc reactor tech got you in the door because Atlantis has been running on fumes since we lost our ZPM. But out there. He gestured at the active Stargate. Sheppard's in command of military operations. You follow orders, you stay alive. Clear. Tony snapped off a sarcastic salute. Crystal, General. O'Neill's expression didn't change. I'm serious, Stark. The Wraith have been culling humans in Pegasus for 10,000 years. They're not Chitauri. They're not going to wait for you to suit up and make a quippy entrance. And they don't care how much money you have or how many doctorates are on your wall. Something in O'Neill's tone, the weight of experience, of losses counted, made Tony pause. This wasn't posturing. This was a soldier who'd seen things that made New York look like a warm-up. Understood. Good. O'Neill nodded to Sheppard. Colonel, your expedition. Bring them home. Sheppard's team moved toward the gate. Teyla Emigon, the Athosian woman who carried herself like a warrior poet, Dr. Elizabeth Weir, the expedition leader whose diplomatic bearing couldn't quite hide the steel underneath, and a dozen others including Dr. Radek Zelenka, who'd actually been pleasant to work with unlike his colleague McKay. Tony fell in step, feeling the weight of the moment. Through that rippling surface was a city built by the ancients, the most advanced civilization in the history of the galaxy, who'd ascended to a higher plane of existence. Atlantis had been lost for 10,000 years beneath the ocean of an alien world. And he was about to walk there in 7 seconds. Chevron 7 is locked, the gate technician announced. Sheppard glanced back at Tony. First time through's always weird. Just keep walking and try not to think about your molecules being disassembled, transmitted through subspace, and reassembled 3 million light-years away. Oh, that's comforting. McKay smirked. Statistically, gate travel is safer than flying. Unless the wormhole intersects a solar flare, or you dial into a black hole, or the DHD malfunctions mid-transit, or... Rodney, Weir said quietly. Right. Shutting up. McKay walked through the event horizon and vanished, pulled into that impossible surface like a stone into water. Tony took a breath. The arc reactor hummed against his sternum, steady and reliable. Jarvis murmured in his ear, Sir, I'm detecting exotic energy readings I cannot classify. Recommend proceeding with caution. When have I ever not been cautious, Jay? Shall I compile the list alphabetically or chronologically? Tony grinned and stepped into the Stargate. Cold. That was the first sensation, a cold so profound it seemed to stop time itself, followed by a pulling sensation in every direction at once. His vision went white, then fractured into impossible geometries as the wormhole grabbed him and flung him through the universe at speeds that made light look stationary. For one crystalline moment, Tony Stark existed everywhere and nowhere, his consciousness scattered across 3 million light-years of subspace. Then he stumbled forward onto a metal ramp, gasping, every nerve ending firing at once. Welcome to Atlantis, Mr. Stark, Elizabeth Weir said, steadying him with a hand on his elbow. Tony looked up, and forgot how to breathe. The gate room soared around him in elegant curves and impossible angles, ancient architecture that made human engineering look like cave paintings. Towers of crystalline metal rose beyond massive windows, catching the light of an alien sun over an ocean that stretched to a horizon too far away, too perfect. The city itself floated, somehow, held above the water by technology that predated human civilization by millions of years. Everything glowed with a soft ambient light, no visible source, as if the walls themselves were alive. Holy, Tony whispered. Yeah, Sheppard said, grinning at Tony's reaction. That's what everyone says. Give it a week. You'll get used to it. McKay was already at a control console, fingers flying over ancient interfaces. Power levels holding at 23%. Gate transit drained 0.3% from reserves. At this rate, we have approximately 96 days before city systems start failing. Elizabeth turned to Tony, and her expression was serious. That's why you're here, Mr. Stark. The ancients built Atlantis to run on zero-point modules, ZPMs, which extract energy from subspace. We had one, but it was depleted defending the city. Without it, we're running on auxiliary power and whatever we can scavenge from Naquata generators. Your arc reactor technology represents a completely different approach to energy generation. If we can integrate it with ancient systems, or even just use it to supplement our power grid. You might buy yourself more time, Tony finished, his mind already racing through the possibilities. The arc reactor ran on a palladium core generating 3 gigajoules per second, clean and sustainable. Scaled up, adapted to ancient technology that manipulated subspace itself. Mr. Stark. We're prompted. Tony pulled his gaze from the windows, from that impossible view. 3 million light-years from Earth. From Pepper. From everything familiar. And somehow, standing in this city built by beings who'd achieved what humanity could only dream of, Tony Stark felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Humility. Yeah, he said quietly. Let's see what we can do. Behind them, the Stargate shut down with a sound like the universe taking a breath. In the sudden silence, Atlantis hummed, a vibration at the edge of hearing, ancient and patient and waiting. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Indeed. The expedition began. The lab McKay assigned him was somewhere between research facility and sacred temple, all flowing ancient architecture and consoles that responded to touch with soft blue light. Tony had been working for 6 hours straight, Jarvis mapping the city's power distribution network while he reverse-engineered ancient interface protocols. The ancients had apparently never heard of USB ports. You're doing it wrong, McKay announced, appearing in the doorway with a tablet and an expression of professional disdain. The ancient control systems use a neural feedback interface keyed to the ATA gene. You can't just brute force your way into the operating system with, is that a holographic projection array you built from spare parts? Tony didn't look up from where Jarvis had manifested as a rotating three-dimensional schematic of Atlantis's power grid, hovering above his work surface in crisp blue light. Took me 3 hours. Your ancient technology doesn't play well with modern computing architecture, so I had to create a translation matrix. Jarvis is now interfacing with your sensors through a quantum entanglement relay I jury-rigged from. You can't just jury-rig quantum entanglement, McKay interrupted, stepping closer to examine the projection with the intensity of a predator spotting prey. The decoherence rates alone would destroy data integrity within microseconds unless you're using some kind of error correction algorithm that compensates for. He stopped. Wait. Are you using a recursive Fibonacci sequence to stabilize the quantum state? 17 iterations deep, yeah. It's not perfect, but it gets me real-time data from your sensors without needing your gene to access the ancient systems directly. Tony finally looked up. Which, by the way, is a completely insane security protocol. What happens if everyone with the gene dies? The city just locks itself forever. The ancients assumed their own people would use their technology. McKay was still staring at the hologram, and Tony caught something in his expression, not quite respect, but close. Professional recognition, maybe. This is, actually clever. Crude, but clever. Though you're pulling nearly a kilowatt just to maintain the interface. Power consumption is a problem. I know. Tony gestured and Jarvis shifted the display, showing Atlantis's energy reserves as a slowly draining pool. 23% and dropping, measured against estimates of daily consumption. Your city is dying, McKay. Slowly, but dying. Life support, shields, gate operations, everything draws from the same reserves, and you've got no way to recharge without a ZPM. McKay's jaw tightened. I'm aware. I've been managing this city's power for months while trying to keep us alive against Wraith hive ships, replicators, and whatever else Pegasus wants to throw at us. If you think you can just swoop in and... The arc reactor, Tony interrupted, tapping his chest. The blue glow was visible even in the lab's bright light. 3 gigajoules per second, continuous output. It's not subspace energy extraction like your ZPMs, but it's clean, sustainable, and I built it in a cave with a box of scraps. Now imagine what I could build with ancient fabrication technology in a few weeks. For a long moment, McKay said nothing. Then, show me. Tony pulled up his designs, schematics Jarvis had been refining since they'd arrived. The arc reactor uses a palladium core in a self-sustaining reaction. Scale it up, integrate it with your Naquata generator frameworks, and we could potentially supplement city power by 15 to 20%. Not enough to fully replace a ZPM, but enough to buy you time. Naquata is a superconductor with unique properties that your generators use because the Goa'uld discovered it first and the ancient technology adapted to interface with it. I read the briefing. Tony met McKay's eyes. But the ancients also built this city to run on pure energy extracted from vacuum fluctuations. They thought bigger than element-specific reactions. So should we. McKay opened his mouth, closed it, then pulled up his own tablet. The fabrication labs are on Pier 3. We'd need to recalibrate the molecular assembly matrices to work with your palladium specifications, and the power draw for fabrication alone would be 2% of reserves per prototype. I already calculated it. Of course you did. McKay's fingers flew across his tablet. Fine. We run simulations first. If, and this is a significant if, your arc reactor technology can integrate with ancient power distribution without causing cascade failures in the city's systems, then we allocate resources for a prototype. But I'm the senior scientist on this expedition, which means I supervise every step. Clear. Tony grinned. Crystal. Though for the record, supervising usually implies you're in charge. I am in charge. You keep telling yourself that. The door chimed and Sheppard walked in, Dr. Zelenka trailing behind him looking exhausted. Ladies, playing nice? Sheppard asked. We're collaborating, McKay said icily. Aha. Sheppard turned to Tony. Stark, you've got the gene therapy scheduled for tomorrow morning. Dr. Beckett needs you in the infirmary at 0800. Tony frowned. The ancient gene thing? I thought that was optional. It is, Sheppard said. But if you want to access about 70% of the city's systems, you need it. The ATA gene, Ancient Technology Activation Gene, is what lets the tech respond to your thoughts. I've got it naturally. Most people don't. Beckett developed a gene therapy that gives it to you artificially. Gene therapy. Tony processed that. You're talking about rewriting my DNA. Only a little, Zelenka offered helpfully. Is very safe. I have had it done. Only minor side effects, headaches, occasional nausea. One time I activated weapons console by accident and nearly shot down a puddle jumper, but that was user error, not genetic. Rodek, McKay cut in. Not helping. Sheppard leaned against a console, and Tony noticed how naturally his hand rested near his sidearm, not threatening, just instinctive readiness. Look, Stark, nobody's forcing you. But the gene means you can access ancient systems directly, fly the puddle jumpers, use the weapons. Out here, that might be the difference between getting home and not. Tony thought about that. Rewriting his DNA felt like crossing a line, becoming something other than human. Then again, he had a miniaturized arc reactor in his chest cavity and had died briefly in Afghanistan before building his way out. Maybe that line was already crossed. Fine, he said. 0800. But if I start glowing or speaking ancient, I'm blaming you. Deal. Sheppard pushed off the console. Also, team briefing at 1900. We've got a mission to P3X for 21 tomorrow afternoon, pre-ancient settlement, possibly Wraith controlled. We want you to observe, get a feel for how we operate off-world. Off-world. Tony tested the phrase. You mean another planet? That's generally what off-world means, yes. McKay snorted. This is going to be entertaining. Stark's going to step through the gate expecting something from a science fiction movie and find a Bronze Age village with mud huts and suspicious locals who think we're demons. Or gods, Zelenka added. Sometimes they think we are gods. Very awkward. Tony looked at the hologram of Atlantis, this city built by beings who'd mastered technology humanity couldn't comprehend, floating on an alien ocean in a galaxy where humans were prey. Where monsters called Wraith fed on people like livestock, and had done so for 10,000 years. Where the expedition survived on borrowed power and salvaged equipment, cut off from Earth, defending not just themselves but every human world in Pegasus. 3 million light-years from home. No backup. No extraction. Just this team, this city, and whatever they could build with ancient tools and human stubbornness. Okay, Tony said quietly. 1900. I'll be there. After they left, Tony stood alone in the lab, Jarvis humming in his ear and Atlantis humming in the walls. Through the windows, the alien sun was setting over that impossible ocean, painting the sky colors Earth had never known. Sir, Jarvis said. I've completed preliminary analysis of the city's power distribution network. There are systems offline that appear designed for defensive purposes, weapons platforms, shield emitters, and what might be a long-range sensor array. All requiring power levels we cannot currently sustain. How much power? Estimates suggest full operational status would require approximately 800% of current reserves. 8 times what they had. Tony pulled up the arc reactor schematics again, already thinking through iterations, improvements, scaling factors. 1 reactor wouldn't be enough. Neither would 10. But maybe, if he could crack the underlying principles of ancient power generation, combine it with his own technology. "We're going to need a bigger boat," he murmured. Outside, Atlantis settled into night, ancient and patient and waiting for someone clever enough to wake it fully. McKay and Stark had 96 days to figure it out. The gene therapy felt like someone had poured liquid fire into his veins and then asked his DNA to rewrite itself while he watched. Tony lay on the infirmary bed, sweating, while Dr. Carson Beckett monitored readings on equipment that was half ancient technology, half Earth medical instruments jury-rigged together. Heart rate elevated but stable, Beckett said in his Scottish burr, his calm professionalism reminiscent of doctors who'd worked on Tony after Afghanistan. "The retrovirus is integrating with your genetic structure now. Should feel a wee bit uncomfortable for another few minutes, then it'll pass." Uncomfortable, Tony managed through gritted teeth. "That's one word for it. The alternative word is excruciating, but I find patients prefer uncomfortable." Beckett smiled, checking another readout. "You're doing fine, Mr. Stark. Better than most, actually. Colonel Sheppard barely noticed when we gave him the therapy, but he already had the gene naturally. We were just activating dormant sequences." The burning sensation faded, replaced by a strange tingling that seemed to spread from his core outward. Tony's vision sharpened, and suddenly he was aware of the infirmary in a way he hadn't been before. The lights brightened slightly as he looked at them. A medical scanner on the nearby tray hummed to life, responding to his attention. "There we go," Beckett said, satisfied. "Your gene's active. Try not to activate anything important for the next few hours while your body adjusts." We once had a Marine accidentally turn on the city's self-destruct during his adjustment period. Bit of a panic. Tony sat up slowly, testing his equilibrium. "You're joking." "I wish I were." Dr. McKay talked him through the deactivation sequence. Terrified the poor lad so badly he requested transfer back to Earth. Beckett powered down his monitors. "You're cleared for duty, though I want you back here tomorrow for a follow-up. And if you experience any unusual symptoms, severe headaches, visual distortions, uncontrolled activation of ancient technology, come see me immediately." Define uncontrolled. Last month, Lieutenant Cadman sneezed and accidentally activated a weapons drone that chased her through 3 corridors. Beckett's expression was perfectly serious. "The gene therapy is remarkable, but it takes practice to control. Think of it like learning to use a new limb." Tony left the infirmary and immediately felt it. The city was alive around him in a way it hadn't been before. Not alive like Jarvis, programmed and responsive. Alive like something aware, waiting, patient. Consoles glowed softly as he passed. Doors opened before he reached them, anticipating his path. The ambient lighting adjusted to comfortable levels automatically. "Sir," Jarvis said in his earpiece. "I'm detecting unusual neural activity patterns. Your brain is generating low-frequency electromagnetic fields consistent with ancient technology activation," Tony finished. He stopped in a corridor, placed his palm on a wall panel, and information flooded into his mind, not words, exactly, but pure understanding. This section's power consumption. Structural integrity. Environmental controls. It was like touching the city's nervous system and feeling it respond. "Fascinating," he whispered. "Ah, you've activated your gene." Sheppard appeared from a side corridor, carrying a P-90 and looking comfortable in tactical gear. "Fair warning, it's addictive. Once you can feel the city responding to you, everything else feels blind." Tony pulled his hand away from the panel. "How do you control it?" "I just got a data dump about environmental systems I wasn't even asking about." Practice. Think of it like meditation. You have to quiet your mind, focus on what you actually want, or the city reads your surface thoughts and responds to all of them. Sheppard gestured down the corridor. "Come on. Since you've got the gene now, I want to show you something before the mission briefing." They took a transport chamber, ancient elevators that moved not just vertically but horizontally through the city's towers, to one of the outer piers. The view through the massive windows was stunning, the ocean stretching endlessly, Atlantis's towers reflecting in water so clear Tony could see alien fish schooling hundreds of feet below. Sheppard led him to a bay where several small spacecraft sat docked, sleek, manta-ray-shaped vessels maybe 40 feet long. Ancient design, clearly, with that characteristic flowing aesthetic. Puddle jumpers, Sheppard said, walking up to one. The rear hatch lowered automatically at his approach, and Tony felt it respond to his own presence as well, a gentle acknowledgement, like a dog recognizing a new member of its pack. The ancients called them gateships. They're equipped with a DHD so they can dial the Stargate themselves and fly through, fold-out drive pods for atmospheric flight, inertial dampeners that make combat maneuvers feel like highway driving, and a drone weapon system that saved my life more times than I can count. Tony stepped into the jumper's interior. 2 seats up front, benches along the sides for passengers, and a rear compartment for cargo. The pilot's seat beckoned, and before Sheppard could say anything, Tony sat down. The jumper came alive around him. Holographic displays materialized, ancient text scrolling across his vision, except he could read it now, understand it instinctively. The ship's systems reported full power, weapons armed, sensors active. Outside the bay doors, he could see targeting reticules tracking movement, the jumper's awareness extending through the city's sensor network. Whoa, Tony breathed. Yeah. Sheppard slid into the co-pilot's seat. The gene gives you direct neural interface. You think about flying, the jumper flies. You think about firing drones, they fire. It's the most intuitive weapons platform I've ever used, and I've flown everything from F-16s to X-302s. The ancients built these 10,000 years ago, and we still can't match them. Tony's hands hovered over the controls, except they weren't really controls, more like suggestions. The jumper responded to thought, not touch. He imagined lifting off, and felt the drive pods engage, ready. He imagined the bay doors opening, and they began to move before Sheppard cleared his throat. Maybe save the test flight for when we're not trying to conserve power. Sheppard suggested. Each launch and recovery cycle drains 0.2% from reserves. Tony reluctantly powered down the systems, feeling the jumper settle back into standby. That's incredible technology. With my arc reactor integrated, we could. Yeah, McKay's already planning that. He wants to retrofit the jumpers with supplemental power systems so they can operate longer without needing city power to recharge. Sheppard stood. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, mission briefing. You need to understand what we're walking into out there. The briefing room overlooked the gate room, all windows and ancient architecture. The team assembled, Sheppard, Teyla, Ronon Dex, a tall, dangerous-looking man with dreadlocks who'd barely spoken to Tony, McKay, Dr. Zelenka, Elizabeth Weir, and a handful of Marines including a sergeant named Stackhouse. Weir stood at the head of the table, pulling up holographic displays of a planet from the ancient database. P3X-421. Long-range sensors detected what appears to be a pre-industrial human settlement, population approximately 2,000. Ancient database lists it as Wraith territory, but no recent culling activity. We're going in to assess whether they'd be willing to trade, food, supplies, anything we can barter for. And if the Wraith show up? Ronon asked, his voice a low rumble. We gate out immediately, Weir said firmly. This is a reconnaissance mission, not combat. Colonel Sheppard will command the ground team. Teyla, Ronon, Dr. McKay, Sergeant Stackhouse's fire team, and Mr. Stark as observer. Tony raised an eyebrow. Observer? You wanted to see how we operate, Sheppard said. This is how. We gate to an alien world, make contact with the locals, try not to get killed or accidentally violate their cultural taboos, scan for ancient technology or useful resources, and gate home before anything with too many teeth notices us. Standard Tuesday. McKay pulled up his tablet. I've programmed the MALP with sensor sweeps. We'll send it through first to confirm the gate area is safe, no environmental hazards, no immediate hostiles, no Wraith dart signatures in orbit. Wraith darts, Tony repeated. Teyla spoke, her voice calm but carrying weight. The Wraith use them to cull humans from worlds. The darts can dematerialize people with a beam and store them for feeding. I have seen entire villages taken in minutes. Her dark eyes met Tony's. You must understand, Mr. Stark, in Pegasus, humans are food. The Wraith have culled us for 10,000 years. Some worlds hide. Some fight. All fear. The room fell silent. Tony thought about New York, about Chitauri pouring through a portal, about people screaming in the streets. That had been one battle. One day. These people lived with that threat constantly, across an entire galaxy. Point taken, he said quietly. We're continued. We gate out at 0900. Full tactical loadout. Mr. Stark, I understand you brought your armor. The Mark 6, compressed configuration. I can deploy it in 15 seconds if needed. Let's hope it's not needed, we're said. But have it ready. Dismissed. As the team filed out, Tony stayed behind, looking down at the Stargate. In the morning, he'd step through that event horizon again, this time to a world in a galaxy where humans were prey. Sheppard paused at the door. Second thoughts. Tony touched the arc reactor through his shirt, feeling its steady pulse. No. Just adjusting expectations. Good. Because out there, the arc reactor won't matter. The armor won't matter. What matters is trusting your team and getting everyone home alive. Sheppard's expression was serious. These people, Teyla lost her father to the Wraith. Ronon's entire planet was culled, he spent 7 years running from them as a tracked prey. McKay acts like an ass, but he's saved this city a dozen times over. They're the best team I've ever worked with. If you can't trust them, don't come tomorrow. I'll be there, Tony said. After Sheppard left, Tony stood alone watching the gate, dormant and waiting. Jarvis was quiet in his ear. The city hummed around him, patient and ancient. Tomorrow, he'd learn what it meant to be prey. The MALP, Mobile Analytic Laboratory probe, rolled through the Stargate at 0857 hours, its squat, tank-like form vanishing into the event horizon with a ripple of displaced energy. Tony stood in the gate room with the rest of Sheppard's team, tactical vest feeling unfamiliar over his civilian clothes, the compressed Mark 6 armor in a specialized pack on his back. Malps through, the gate technician called from the control room above. Telemetry coming in now. Holographic displays materialized, feed from the Malps cameras showing a wooded clearing, ancient stone steps leading down from the Stargate, no immediate threats visible. Atmospheric composition normal for human habitation. No Wraith dart signatures detected in orbit. Temperature 22 degrees Celsius, McKay read from his datapad. No radiation, no toxins, no large predators within sensor range. Looks safe. Safe is a relative term, Ronon muttered, checking his particle magnum, a traveler weapon he'd acquired somewhere in his years running from the Wraith. The weapon was brutal, efficient, perfectly suited to the man carrying it. Sheppard checked his P90 one more time, then looked at his team. Standard contact protocol. Teyla takes point on first contact, she knows the cultural dynamics better than any of us. McKay, you're on sensors. Ronon, rear guard. Stackhouse, you and your marines stay within sight of the gate in case we need fast extraction. Stark, you stay with me in the middle, observe, and try not to activate any ancient technology we didn't know was there. No promises, Tony said. Teyla smiled slightly, the first time Tony had seen her do so in his direction. Do not worry, Mr. Stark. The first mission is always the strangest. After this, stepping to new worlds through the ancestral ring will seem normal. Ancestral ring. That's what you call the Stargate? It is what my people have always called it. The ancestors, the ancients, left it for us, though we did not know its true purpose for many generations. She adjusted the Wraith stunner at her hip, her movements graceful and economical. Today, you will see what it means to be human in Pegasus. It is not the same as being human in your galaxy. The Stargate activated for their departure, chevrons locking in sequence. The seventh chevron engaged with that distinctive clang, and the event horizon stabilized. "All right, kids," Sheppard said. "Let's go meet the neighbors." Tony walked through the gate for the third time, and this time the cold pulling everywhere sensation felt almost familiar. Almost. He stumbled out on the other side onto ancient stone, immediately hit by smells, earth, vegetation, wood smoke. The MALP sat nearby, sensors still running. Beyond it, the forest pressed close, massive trees unlike anything on Earth reaching toward an orange-tinted sky. "Not Kansas anymore," Tony murmured. "Two suns," McKay said, pointing upward where twin stars orbited each other, visible through the canopy. "Binary system. Probably explains the unusual stellar drift that made this address so difficult to calculate from the ancient database." Sheppard signaled and the team moved out, following a worn path that led away from the gate clearing. Stackhouse's Marines took up defensive positions around the gate itself. Tony stayed close to Sheppard, hyper-aware of every sound, rustling leaves, distant bird calls that sounded wrong, the crunch of boots on alien soil. They emerged from the forest after 15 minutes, and Tony stopped. The village spread across a valley below them, maybe 100 structures built from wood and stone, smoke rising from cooking fires. People moved between buildings, men, women, children. Completely normal except for the massive metal tower at the village's center, 40 feet high and clearly not built by pre-industrial hands. Ancient design, unmistakable. "Well, that's interesting," McKay said, already scanning it. "That's an ancient sensor array. Dormant, but intact. If we could activate it." Later, Sheppard cut him off. "First, we don't get shot with arrows." "Teyla." Teyla stepped forward, calling out in a language Tony didn't recognize. A moment later, figures appeared from the village, men with bows, wary but not immediately hostile. Teyla spoke again, gesturing to the team, her posture open and non-threatening. One of the villagers responded, and they had a brief exchange. Teyla turned back to Sheppard. "They call themselves the Vidini. They will speak with us, but they are frightened. A Wraith scout ship passed overhead 3 days ago. They fear another culling is coming." "Define culling for the new guy," Tony said quietly. Ronon's voice was flat. "Wraith show up. Dart scoop up people with beaming technology. Store them like cargo. Take them back to hive ships to feed on. Whole villages gone in minutes." Tony thought about that sensor array. The tower. Is that why the Wraith are interested? Possibly, McKay said, eyes on his data pad. Ancient technology emits a specific energy signature. If the Wraith have sensors calibrated to detect it, even dormant systems might register. Sheppard made a decision. "All right. Teyla, ask if we can examine the tower. McKay, figure out if we can safely shut it down or shield its signature. If the Wraith are tracking it, we're putting these people in danger just by being here." They descended to the village, and Tony watched how the locals reacted, fear, mostly, mixed with desperate hope. Children hid behind adults. Old women watched with eyes that had seen too much. A village elder, gray-haired and stooped, approached with the kind of dignity that comes from leading people through impossible circumstances. Teyla handled the introductions with practiced grace. The elder, his name was Ronon, spoke through her translation. "The tower has stood since the time of the ancestors. We do not know its purpose, only that when the Wraith last came, 50 years ago, they ignored it. But now," he gestured helplessly. "Now you're afraid they've come back for it," Sheppard finished. "We have nowhere else to go. The Wraith control every world we could reach through the ring. We hide, we survive, but we are always prey. The resignation in the old man's voice hit Tony harder than expected. This wasn't a temporary threat. This was life in Pegasus, permanent fear, permanent victimhood, waiting for monsters to descend from the sky and take your family to be food. "Let me look at the tower," Tony said suddenly. Sheppard glanced at him. "You sure? I've got the gene now. If it's ancient technology, maybe I can do something." Tony pulled out a portable scanner Jarvis had configured to interface with ancient systems. Worth a shot. They approached the tower together, Marines establishing a perimeter while McKay and Tony examined the structure. Up close, it was clearly ancient, seamless metal construction, no visible joints or welds, covered in the telltale interface panels that responded to the ATA gene. Tony placed his palm on the surface and felt it immediately. The tower was offline but not dead, like a computer in sleep mode. Systems waiting to activate. He pushed with his thoughts, carefully, and information trickled into his awareness. "It's a sensor array," he confirmed. Long-range detection grid, designed to track gate activity and ship movements across the sector. Probably part of a network the ancients used to monitor Wraith activity. "Can you shut it down?" Sheppard asked. "It is already shut down," McKay interjected, reading his own scanner. "But it's emitting a low-level standby signal, probably automated, part of the ancient network maintenance protocols. The Wraith would need sensitive equipment to detect it, but if they're specifically looking for ancient technology." Tony dove deeper into the tower's systems, Jarvis feeding him processing support through their quantum link. The standby signal was hardwired, designed to periodically ping other nodes in the network that no longer existed. Shutting it down completely would require. His awareness touched something unexpected. A power source, buried beneath the tower. Not a ZPM, but something similar. A smaller ancient battery, maybe 1% of a ZPM's capacity, but still functional after 10,000 years. "There's a power module underneath," Tony said, excitement building. "If we could extract it." "No," Teyla's voice was sharp. "Mr. Stark, these people depend on the tower's presence. It has been here since their ancestors' time. To remove its power would be to take away part of their heritage. Their heritage is going to get them culled," McKay pointed out. "If that signal is what attracted Wraith attention, then we help them relocate," Sheppard decided. "There are uninhabited worlds in the database. We can." A distant sound cut him off. High-pitched, growing louder. Tony looked up and saw them, three angular shapes dropping through the orange sky, moving impossibly fast. Wraith darts. "Contact!" Ronon shouted, already firing upward with his particle magnum. The darts screamed overhead, and Tony watched in horror as beams lanced down from their undersides. Where the beams touched, people simply vanished, dematerialized, stored, taken. Screaming erupted from the village. People ran in all directions. Another dart swooped low, and Tony saw a child vanish mid-stride, there 1 second and gone the next, while his mother shrieked. "Stark, suit up!" Sheppard ordered, firing his P-90 at a dart that banked overhead. The bullet sparked off alien armor. "Everyone, back to the gate. Now!" Tony's hands moved automatically, yanking the activation sequence on the compressed armor. Nanites flowed from the pack, crawling across his skin, assembling themselves with the familiar weight and connection of the Mark VI. The HUD activated, Jarvis's voice calm in his ear. "Sir, detecting 3 hostile aircraft, composition unknown. Weapons systems online. Flight systems optimal." The faceplate closed. Tony's arc reactor flared, charging repulsors. A dart dove toward them, beams sweeping across fleeing villagers, and Tony didn't think, he just acted. Repulsors fired, twin beams of concentrated energy hammering into the dart's underside. The alien craft staggered, its beam cutting off, and Tony launched skyward after it. The Dart pilot reacted instantly, pulling into a climb that would have torn apart any human aircraft, but Tony matched it, flying on pure thought and stark engineering. "Sir, I'm detecting organic components integrated with the ship's technology," Jarvis reported. "These craft appear to be partially biological." The Dart spun, faster than anything Tony had fought before, and opened fire with energy weapons from wing-mounted ports. Tony dodged, repulsors firing again, tracking the Dart through a series of maneuvers that pushed the armor's inertial dampeners to their limits. Below, he could see Sheppard's team herding villagers toward the gate, McKay frantically dialing. Another Dart swooped low, and Ronon's particle magnum caught it mid-pass, tearing through armor. The Dart spiraled into the forest, crashing in a fireball. 2 left. Tony targeted the nearest one, launched a micromissile from his shoulder mount, and watched it track perfectly, until the Dart simply outmaneuvered it, the missile detonating harmlessly behind. "These things are fast," Tony muttered. "Biological reflexes integrated with mechanical systems," Jarvis observed. "Reaction time approximately 3 times faster than conventional aircraft." The Darts regrouped, and Tony realized with cold certainty that they were coordinating. Not through radio, through something else. Wraith telepathy, maybe, or ship-to-ship organic communication. They split, flanking him, and Tony found himself caught between 2 beams trying to dematerialize him into their storage matrices. The armor's shields held, but barely. Tony dove, pulling GS that would have killed an unprotected human, and came up beneath one Dart with both repulsors blazing. The Dart's belly armor cracked, green fluid spraying, blood, Tony realized with disgust, and the craft wobbled. Below, the gate activated. Sheppard was getting people through. The damaged Dart fled toward orbit, trailing smoke. The remaining one made one more pass over the village, scooped up 3 more people in its beam, and followed its companion skyward. Then they were gone, vanishing into the orange sky. Tony landed hard near the gate, armor scorched and systems complaining. The village was chaos, people sobbing, searching for family members who'd simply vanished. Elder Ronon stood motionless, staring at empty space where his granddaughter had been standing. 37 people taken, Teyla said quietly, her voice shaking. In less than 2 minutes. Sheppard's expression was stone. Everyone through the gate. Now. McKay, dial Atlantis. As the survivors fled through the event horizon, Tony stood in his armor, arc reactor glowing, and understood something he'd been too arrogant to grasp before. He'd fought Wraith Darts and barely survived. And those were just scouts, small, fast ships piloted by drones. Somewhere out there were hive ships the size of cities, commanded by Wraith who'd been perfecting the art of hunting humans for 10,000 years. His armor meant nothing here. His money meant nothing. His genius meant nothing. He was prey now, like everyone else. The debriefing room felt suffocating despite its spacious ancient architecture. Tony sat with the armor retracted, arc reactor exposed through his torn shirt, while Elizabeth reviewed the mission report with an expression that managed to be both sympathetic and coldly analytical. 37 people taken, she said quietly. Plus an estimated 12 more the Darts collected before we arrived. The Vidini population on P3X, for 21 is now 49 individuals, down from approximately 2003 years ago according to Teyla's information. The Wraith have been systematically culling that world. We got 107 through the gate, Sheppard added. They're in temporary quarters on the East Pier. Beckett's checking them over, but they're traumatized. Most of them watched family members vanish. Tony stared at his hands, still seeing that child disappear mid-stride. Their one moment, stored in a Wraith Dart's organic holding matrix the next. Waiting to be fed upon. What happens to the people they take? The room fell silent. Finally, Ronon spoke, his voice carrying the weight of experience. Wraith feed on life force. Put their hand on your chest, drain years from you. You age decades in seconds. Most die. Some survive but they're broken, old, weak, mine's gone. The lucky ones die fast. 7 years, Ronon continued, staring at nothing. 7 years they hunted me. Every time I made a friend, helped a village, stayed anywhere too long, Wraith found me. Tracking device in my back. I led them to hundreds of people before Beckett cut it out. Tony felt sick. Jesus Christ. There is no Christ here, Teyla said softly. Only the Wraith, and those who hide from them, and those who fight knowing they will lose. McKay was uncharacteristically quiet, fingers drumming on his tablet. Finally, the ancient sensor tower. Its standby signal drew them. I've analyzed the data. The Wraith have been systematically tracking ancient technology signatures across Pegasus for months. They're searching for something. Atlantis, we're said. They know we're here. They may not know exactly where, but they know humans have activated the city. Every time we use ancient technology, we risk revealing ourselves. So what do we do? Tony asked. Just, stop using it. This entire city is ancient technology. You'd have to shut down life support. We don't stop, Sheppard said firmly. We adapt. We've been doing it for months. But Stark, you need to understand, your armor drew attention out there. The arc reactor signature, the repulsors, the energy output. If the Wraith have sensors calibrated to detect high-energy systems. I made us a target. Tony's voice was flat. You saved lives, Teyla corrected. You destroyed one dart and damaged another. Without your intervention, more would have been taken. But she's right about the signature, McKay added, pulling up holographic displays. I analyzed the suit's energy output during combat. The arc reactor puts out a distinctive spectral signature, nothing like ancient technology, but equally anomalous. If the Wraith were monitoring that planet with orbital sensors, they definitely noticed. Tony thought about that. 3 million light-years from home, and his greatest achievement, the arc reactor, the thing that kept him alive, was a beacon drawing monsters. Can you shield it? We're asked. Mask the signature somehow? Maybe. Tony's mind was already working the problem, that familiar refuge of engineering challenges. The Wraith use organic technology, right? Biological systems integrated with mechanical. Their sensors probably work differently than ours. If I could get a sample of their scanning equipment, analyze how they detect energy signatures. You want to study Wraith technology, McKay said slowly. That's, actually not a terrible idea. We've salvaged some equipment from crashed darts, though most of it degrades quickly once separated from the living ship systems. Show me what you have. They reconvened in McKay's lab an hour later. Zelenka had pulled salvaged Wraith components from storage, twisted organic metal hybrids that looked grown rather than built, still smelling faintly of decay despite preservation efforts. Wraith technology is disgusting, McKay announced, poking at a sensor module with forceps. It's half alive, runs on biological processes we barely understand, and stops working if you look at it wrong. The ancients fought them for 100 years and never fully cracked their systems. Tony examined a dart sensor array through a scanning electron microscope. Jarvis was processing the imagery, and what he saw was fascinating. Crystalline structures embedded in organic tissue, electrical impulses carried by specialized nerve-like fibers, quantum entanglement occurring at the cellular level. It's not technology, Tony said slowly. It's evolution. They didn't build this, they grew it. Probably over thousands of years of genetic modification. The Wraith evolved from the Iratus bug, Teyla explained, standing by the window overlooking the ocean. A creature native to Pegasus that fed on life force. It encountered humans that the ancients had seeded on various worlds, and over time, the two species merged. The result was the Wraith, human intelligence combined with the bug's feeding mechanism and regenerative abilities. So they're literally evolved to hunt us. Tony felt that reality settle in his gut. We're not fighting an enemy. We're fighting a predator species that's been perfecting its hunting methods for millennia. Now you're getting it, Ronon said from the doorway. He'd appeared silently, as usual. Can't reason with them. Can't negotiate. They need to feed, humans are food, and they've got hive ships that outnumber anything we can field. Only question is how long we survive. Ronon, Teyla said gently. What? It's the truth. Ronon's scarred face was hard. Stark's figuring out what everyone in Pegasus learns eventually, we're livestock. Best we can hope for is not getting culled before we die of old age. Tony stood up from the microscope. No. No. Ronon raised an eyebrow. No. I don't accept that. Tony felt anger building, clean and sharp, the same anger that had driven him out of that cave in Afghanistan. You're telling me humanity's been prey here for 10,000 years? That the Wraith have complete dominance? Fine. That was before. Before Atlantis was rediscovered. Before Earth got involved. Before someone showed up who doesn't think being prey is acceptable. Stark, McKay started. The ancients fought them and lost, Tony continued, pacing now. Fine. But the ancients also ascended, which means they abandoned this galaxy and everyone in it. They left behind incredible technology but no instruction manual, no support, nothing. Just ruins and refugees. Well, I'm not ancient. I'm human. And humans don't give up. Sheppard leaned against a console, expression thoughtful. You got a plan, or is this just inspirational speaking? Tony looked at the Wraith sensor components, then at McKay's displays showing Atlantis's failing power reserves, then at his own arc reactor glowing through his shirt. Pieces were clicking together, not a complete picture yet, but the outline of something. The Wraith detect ancient technology, he said. They're searching for it, probably trying to find Atlantis. But they're also detecting my arc reactor because it's anomalous, high energy, outside their experience. What if we use that? Use it how? McKay asked, suspicious but interested. Decoys. False signatures. We seed the galaxy with energy sources that look like ancient technology or arc reactors, draw Wraith attention away from Atlantis and toward dead ends. Meanwhile, we study how their sensors work, develop countermeasures, figure out how to shield our actual operations. Zelenka spoke up from his workstation. Is clever, but requires resources we do not have. Building decoys sophisticated enough to fool Wraith sensors would require power for fabrication, materials, deployment method. And we'd need Wraith attention focused elsewhere first, Sheppard added. Otherwise they'd just investigate the decoys while maintaining surveillance on Atlantis. Tony turned to McKay. You said the Wraith are searching for something. What if they already found it? What do you mean? That tower on P3X421. The sensor array. You said it was part of an ancient network. What if there are more towers like it across Pegasus, all emitting standby signals? The Wraith could be systematically tracking them, destroying them or studying them. If we could map where they've been, where they're going. McKay's eyes widened. We could predict their movements. Find the next towers before they do. Possibly even reactivate the network, assuming we had the power and the technical capability, which we don't, but theoretically. Theoretically, we could use ancient technology designed to track the Wraith against them, Tony finished. We just need to reverse engineer a 10,000-year-old sensor grid with minimal power and without getting culled in the process. Oh, is that all? McKay said sarcastically. But his fingers were already flying across his tablet, pulling up ancient database entries. The database lists 47 sensor installations across Pegasus. Most are probably destroyed or buried, but if even a dozen are functional. We could establish early warning, Sheppard said, catching on. Know when hive ships are moving, where they're heading. Give worlds time to evacuate or prepare defenses. We could also identify patterns, Teyla added, hope creeping into her voice. Wraith behavior follows hibernation cycles. They wake, cull until sated, sleep for decades. If we could track multiple hives, determine which are active, we'd know where it's safe to operate. Ronon finished, and for the first time since Tony met him, the Satadin looked almost hopeful. Weir's voice came over the lab's comm system. Dr. McKay, Colonel Sheppard, Mr. Stark, please report to my office immediately. They found her staring at a holographic display showing the Pegasus galaxy, hundreds of worlds marked with ancient designations. Her expression was grim. We just received a transmission through the gate, she said. From the genii. The who? Tony asked. Underground society, pre-industrial on the surface but secretly building nuclear weapons in bunkers, Sheppard explained quickly. We have complicated history. They're reporting Wraith activity across 6 sectors, Weir continued. Multiple hive ships have awakened from hibernation. They're claiming it's because of us, because Atlantis became active. The Wraith are searching aggressively for the source of ancient technology signatures. The room went silent. How many hive ships? Sheppard asked quietly. Initial reports suggest at least 20. Possibly more. 20 hive ships. Tony thought about those darts, fast and vicious and nearly impossible to fight. Now multiply that by thousands, each hive ship carrying hundreds of darts, thousands of Wraith warriors, enough firepower to destroy Atlantis's shields and cull every human in the city. We need to increase our power reserves, McKay said, voice tight. With 20 hive ships potentially converging on Atlantis, our shields won't last more than a few hours of sustained bombardment. And that's assuming we don't need power for weapons, life support, or evacuating through the gate. Weir looked at Tony. Mr. Stark, I know you've only been here a few days. But we're out of time. Whatever you and Dr. McKay can do to improve our power situation, do it. Fast. Tony thought about the arc reactor in his chest. 3 gigajoules per second. Enough to power his armor, keep him alive, run Jarvis's systems. A miracle of engineering built in a cave with scraps. I'll need the fabrication lab, he said. Full access to ancient manufacturing systems. And McKay's complete cooperation. You'll have it, we're promised. Both of you, save this city. That's a direct order. As they left her office, Tony caught Sheppard's arm. 20 hive ships. What are our actual chances? Sheppard's expression was carefully neutral. Without a ZPM. Without significant power increases. Without a miracle. He paused. I've seen this city survive impossible odds before. But I've also seen good people die because we didn't have enough power for shields, or weapons, or just keeping the lights on. So our chances. He met Tony's eyes. They're whatever you and McKay can build in the time we have left. Outside the windows, Atlantis's towers gleamed in alien sunlight, beautiful and ancient and fragile. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Wraith hive ships were waking up, hungry and angry and searching. Tony touched the arc reactor, feeling its pulse. Then we'd better get building, he said. The fabrication lab hummed with ancient machinery that had been waiting 10,000 years for someone with the gene and the audacity to push it to its limits. Tony stood before the molecular assembly matrix, a device that could literally construct objects atom by atom from base materials, while McKay argued with him about power allocation. You can't just scale up an arc reactor by a factor of 50 and expect it to remain stable, McKay insisted, gesturing at the holographic schematics Jarvis had projected. The palladium core reaction requires precise electromagnetic containment fields. Make it too large and the field coherence breaks down, the reaction goes critical, and congratulations, you've built a bomb, not a power source. I'm aware of the scaling problems, Tony shot back. That's why I'm not just making it bigger. I'm redesigning the core architecture to use multiple smaller reactors in a networked configuration. Think of it like a cluster, if one fails, the others compensate. Redundancy and distributed load. Zelenka looked up from where he was programming the assembly matrix. Is actually brilliant approach. Ancient systems use similar principle, multiple Naquata generators feeding single distribution grid. But Mr. Stark, the power required to fabricate even one additional arc reactor will drain city reserves by nearly 2%. For a cluster of 6. 12%, McKay finished, running calculations on his tablet. 12% of our remaining power to build something that might work, or might explode, or might simply fail to integrate with ancient systems because the energy frequencies are incompatible. Or, Tony countered, 12% to potentially triple our power output and give this city a fighting chance when those hive ships arrive. He pulled up sensor data from the Wraith Dart combat. Look at these energy readings. The Wraith weapons that hit my armor. They're using some kind of directed energy pulse that's partially organic in nature. Your shields work by creating a subspace bubble that deflects kinetic and energy weapons. But if Wraith weapons have a biological component, the shields might not be fully effective, McKay finished, paling slightly. Because ancient shields were designed before the Wraith evolved into their current form. The ancients fled Pegasus 10,000 years ago. The Wraith have had all that time to adapt. Teyla entered the lab, followed by Ronon. The Vidini refugees are settled, she reported. Dr. Beckett says several are showing signs of malnutrition and disease, but nothing we cannot treat. They are asking if they can return to their world. Not while the Wraith are actively monitoring it, Sheppard said, appearing behind them. He looked exhausted. Tony had learned the Colonel had been coordinating with a dozen other worlds through the gate, trying to organize some kind of early warning network. We're adding P3X421 to the restricted address list. Nobody gates there until we're sure it's safe. Which may be never, Ronon added bluntly. Wraith remember planets they've culled. They'll come back. Tony watched Teyla's expression, carefully controlled, but he could see the pain underneath. How many times had she seen this? Refugees displaced, homes lost, people scattered across worlds trying to stay ahead of predators. The reactor cluster, he said suddenly. If it works, if we can boost Atlantis's power enough to fully activate defensive systems, could we defend other worlds? Everyone looked at him. What do you mean? We're asked, stepping into the lab. Tony gestured at the holographic display, pulling up the Pegasus galaxy map. McKay said there are 47 ancient sensor installations across the galaxy. If we reactivate even half of them, we establish an early warning grid. But what if we do more? The ancients built defensive installations, right? Weapons platforms, shield generators, automated systems designed to protect their worlds. Most were destroyed in the war, Sheppard said. The Wraith systematically took out ancient defenses over a century of fighting. But not all of them. Tony zoomed in on database entries. There are ruins, abandoned outposts, installations that just stopped working when the ancients fled. What if they didn't stop working? What if they just went dormant, waiting for someone with the gene to reactivate them? McKay was already checking the database, fingers flying. Oh my God. He's right. Look at this, the database lists 32 defensive installations as offline, not destroyed. The ancients might have shut them down deliberately when they evacuated, preserving them for exactly this. For someone to come back and restart the defense grid. Can we do it? We're asked. Not without significantly more power than we currently have, McKay admitted. Each installation would need to be visited, systems checked, potentially repaired. We'd need teams, resources, time. Which we don't have with 20 hive ships hunting us, Sheppard finished. Tony stared at the arc reactor schematics, then at the city power displays, then at the map of Pegasus with its scattered ancient installations. Pieces of a puzzle, but they weren't fitting together fast enough. Jarvis, he said quietly. Run a simulation. Assume we successfully build and deploy the arc reactor cluster. Calculate Atlantis's power capacity with 12 new reactors integrated into the grid. The AI's voice responded through his earpiece, audible to the room through speakers. Simulation complete, sir. 12 arc reactors operating at optimal capacity would increase city power reserves by approximately 315%, bringing total capacity to 96% of estimated full operational status. Silence. 315%. McKay repeated. That's almost a ZPM's worth of power. How is that possible? Because arc reactors don't extract power from subspace like ZPMs, Tony explained. They use a self-sustaining reaction that's completely independent. The ancients were brilliant, but they relied on one technology, ZPMs. I'm offering you something different. Something that doesn't run out. Zelenka spoke carefully. But palladium is toxic, yes. And rare. Building 12 reactors requires significant palladium supplies. Tony smiled slightly. Not if we synthesize it. The fabrication matrix can construct elements atom by atom. It'll be power intensive, but once we have the initial reactors online, they can power the fabrication of additional units. It's exponential. First reactor takes 12% of reserves. Second takes 6% because the first is already contributing. Third takes 3%. After 4 reactors, we're net positive on power generation. A bootstrap process, McKay said, wonder creeping into his voice. Build enough to sustain building more. Eventually we could have, he trailed off, calculating. Dozens. Hundreds, potentially, if we had raw materials and time. And if the first reactor doesn't explode, Sheppard added practically. There is that, Tony admitted. We looked at each of them, then at the map of Pegasus, then back to Tony. How long to build the first reactor? 36 hours if we push the fabrication systems. Another 12 for integration and testing. 48 hours total, were calculated. And our intelligence suggests the nearest hive ship is approximately 4 days away, possibly 5 if they're moving cautiously. We have a window, but barely. She made her decision. Do it. Dr. McKay, you'll supervise integration with ancient systems. Mr. Stark, you'll handle the reactor design and construction. Dr. Zelenka, you'll coordinate with both of them and try to prevent them from killing each other. Colonel Sheppard, I need you to organize gate teams for preliminary surveys of those defensive installations, nothing risky, just reconnaissance to determine which ones are worth reactivating once we have the power. And if the Wraith arrive before we're ready? Ronon asked. Then we evacuate what we can through the gate and blow the city, were said flatly. I won't let Atlantis fall to the Wraith intact. The technology here is too valuable, too dangerous. But I'd rather not make that choice. So let's make sure we don't have to. The team dispersed, and Tony found himself alone with McKay in front of the molecular assembly matrix. The Canadian scientist was staring at the arc reactor schematics with an expression Tony recognized, the look of someone seeing their entire understanding of a problem shift. This could work, McKay said quietly. It actually could work. I've been managing this city's power crisis for months, rationing every joule, shutting down non-essential systems, watching our reserves drain while knowing eventually we'd hit zero and that would be it. And you show up with a metal suit and a glowing reactor in your chest and offer to solve it in 48 hours. If it makes you feel better, I'm terrified I'm wrong, Tony admitted. McKay snorted. It doesn't. But I'll take terrified competence over arrogant incompetence any day. He pulled up fabrication parameters. Alright, Stark. Let's build your miracle. But if this blows up and takes out half the city, I'm blaming you in my final report. Fair enough. They worked through the night and into the next day, barely stopping. Tony learned that McKay was insufferable but brilliant, with an eidetic memory and an ability to see patterns in ancient systems that bordered on intuitive. Zelenka was quieter but often caught errors both of them missed, his careful check precision balancing their aggressive innovation. The molecular assembly matrix hummed as it constructed the first arc reactor's components: palladium core, electromagnetic containment rings, power couplings designed to interface with both Stark technology and ancient systems. Jarvis monitored every stage, adjusting parameters in real time. 20 hours in, Sheppard brought them food and coffee. "You two look like death." "We look like geniuses preventing death," McKay corrected, not looking up from his calculations. "There's a difference." "How's the reconnaissance going?" Tony asked, accepting coffee gratefully. "Mixed results," Sheppard reported. "We've gated to 8 installations. 3 are completely destroyed, nothing left but rubble. 2 are buried under geological activity from the past 10,000 years. But 3 are intact, just dormant. If we can power them up, we'd have defensive satellites covering significant portions of 3 sectors." Defensive satellites? Tony's mind caught on that. "What kind of weapons are we talking about?" "Ancient drone weapons. The same ones Atlantis has, but platform-mounted. Each installation has about 100 drones in storage, guided by a control AI. They're basically fire-and-forget missiles with quantum processors and adaptive targeting." Sheppard pulled up footage from a previous battle. "We've used them before. They're devastating against Wraith darts and can damage hive ships if you get enough of them focused." Tony watched the footage. Golden energy weapons that moved like living things, pursuing targets with impossible agility, phasing through shields at the last moment to strike hull directly. Ancient technology at its finest. "We need those installations online," he said. "Not just for Atlantis's defense, for the entire galaxy." "How many drones total across all 47 sites?" "If they're all intact and fully stocked." McKay did quick math. "Approximately 4,700. But most sites are probably depleted, destroyed, or compromised." "Even half that number could turn the tide," Teyla said, entering with Ronon. "The Wraith rely on numerical superiority, send enough darts and ships to overwhelm any defense. But if we could coordinate attacks across multiple platforms, create crossfire zones. We'd need a command network," Ronon added. "Way to control all the installations from a central location. Otherwise each one fights independently and the Wraith can defeat them one by one." Tony looked at McKay. "The sensor grid you mentioned. Could it also serve as a command network?" "Theoretically, yes. The ancient systems were designed to work together, sensors, weapons, shields, all integrated. But rebuilding that network after 10,000 years of degradation, with limited power and time," McKay shook his head. "It's an enormous undertaking." "So we start small," Tony said. "Get the first arc reactor online. Use that power to activate the closest defensive installation. Prove the concept works. Then scale up." The molecular assembly matrix chimed, first phase complete. The arc reactor's core lay in the fabrication chamber, a perfect sphere of palladium and exotic materials that had never existed until 30 seconds ago. Tony stared at it, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it, the first piece of technology that could save Atlantis, or the first piece of a very expensive bomb. "Phase 2, he said. "Let's give it a heartbeat." The arc reactor came online at 0347 hours, and Tony felt it through the gene, a new pulse joining Atlantis's ancient rhythm, foreign yet harmonizing. The electromagnetic containment field stabilized, the palladium core achieved self-sustaining reaction, and 3 gigajoules per second began flowing into the city's power grid. "It's working," Zelenka whispered, staring at his monitors. "Power output stable. No fluctuations. Integration with ancient distribution network successful. City reserves increasing by 0.04% per minute." McKay was running diagnostics, fingers flying across multiple tablets simultaneously. Electromagnetic field coherence at 97%. Thermal output within acceptable parameters. Subspace harmonics, he stopped, frowning. That's odd. What? Tony asked, already moving to look over his shoulder. The arc reactor's energy signature. It's interacting with the city's systems in unexpected ways. Look at this. McKay pulled up a holographic display showing Atlantis's power grid. Where the new reactor connected, the ancient systems were adapting. Neural pathways in the city's control network were restructuring themselves, creating new connections, optimizing power flow. The city's alive, Tony said, watching the changes ripple through the network. It's not just accepting the power, it's learning from it. The ancients built Atlantis with adaptive AI, Sheppard explained, entering the lab with Weir. It can reconfigure itself based on needs and available resources. We've seen it before. When we jury-rigged the gate to connect to Earth, the city figured out how to stabilize the connection on its own. Weir studied the displays. Dr. McKay, is the integration stable enough to begin fabricating the second reactor? Yes, McKay said, still sounding surprised by his own answer. Not only stable. The city's optimization has improved power distribution efficiency by 3%. We're actually getting more out of the first reactor than projected. Then begin fabrication of the second unit immediately, we're ordered. We've just received word from our deep space sensors, 2 hive ships have changed course. They're heading directly toward this sector. The room went cold. How long? Sheppard asked. 72 hours, possibly less if they increase speed. And there's something else. We're pulled up long-range sensor data showing 2 massive organic shapes moving through hyperspace. They're traveling together in formation. Coordinated. They know something, Ronon said. Wraith don't coordinate like that unless they've got a specific target. They've triangulated us, McKay said, voice tight. The energy signatures from Atlantis, from gate activity, from Mr. Stark's armor combat, they've been tracking it all. They know approximately where we are, and now they're coming to investigate. Tony felt the weight of that settle on him. His presence, his technology, his battle with the darts, he'd helped lead the Wraith here. How much time do we need for the full reactor cluster? At current fabrication rates? 96 hours for all 12 units. We're 24 hours short. Then we work faster, Tony said. Jarvis, optimize fabrication protocols. Cut every corner that doesn't compromise structural integrity. McKay, can we run multiple fabrication matrices simultaneously? There are 3 matrices in the city, but powering more than one drains reserves significantly, McKay stopped, realizing. But with the first reactor online, we can afford it. Yes. We could potentially have the fabrication time. Do it, we're ordered. Colonel, what's the status of the defensive installations? Sheppard pulled up a tactical display. We've surveyed 12 sites so far. 5 are viable, intact, defensible positions with functional drone weapons. The closest is on M4H-212, a moon in this system. 6 hours away by Puddle Jumper. That's where we start, Tony said, an idea forming. We send a reactor there, power up the installation, establish a defensive perimeter around Atlantis before the hive ships arrive. Send a reactor. McKay's voice climbed. Stark, each reactor takes 36 hours to fabricate. You want to give one away? I want to turn Atlantis from a target into a fortress. 1 city with shields versus 2 hive ships. Bad odds. But 1 city with shields plus a satellite weapons platform with 100 ancient drones. That changes the math. Teyla spoke up. Mr. Stark is correct. The Wraith expect us to defend from a single position, it is how the ancients fought, and how they eventually lost. If we can create overlapping defensive zones, force the Wraith to engage on multiple fronts. We divide their attention, Ronon finished, a predatory smile crossing his scarred face. Make them fight stupid. We're considered, then nodded. Make it happen. Colonel Sheppard, take a team to M4H-212. Survey the installation, determine what's needed to bring it online. Once we have the second reactor fabricated, you'll transport it there and activate the defenses. I'm going with them, Tony said. Stark, McKay started. The reactor is my design. If there are integration problems, I need to be there to fix them. Plus, I've got the gene now. I can interface with ancient systems as well as anyone. Sheppard studied him. You know, we might run into Wraith. That moon's been abandoned for 10,000 years. Could be a hive ship using it as a staging area, could be a nest of Wraith warriors hibernating in the ruins, could be. I get it. Danger. I'll bring the armor. All right. Gear up. We leave in 2 hours. The puddle jumper lifted off from Atlantis's bay, drive pods unfolding as they cleared the city's shields. Tony sat in the co-pilot seat, watching the ancient city shrink below them, towers gleaming in the alien sun, an impossible achievement floating on an ocean in a galaxy 3 million light-years from home. Beautiful, isn't it? Sheppard said, piloting with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times. The jumper responded to his thoughts more than his hands, banking smoothly as they climbed toward orbit. Terrifying, mostly, Tony admitted. We're about to go to war with organic spaceships piloted by telepathic vampires who've been hunting humans for 10 millennia. Using technology we barely understand, built by a race that fled rather than win. And our entire strategy hinges on whether my arc reactor design can integrate with systems older than human civilization. Welcome to the Pegasus galaxy, Sheppard said with dark humor. You get used to it. Sort of. In the rear compartment, Ronon checked his particle magnum while Teyla meditated, her Wraith stunner holstered at her side. 2 Marines, Lieutenant Ford and Sergeant Stackhouse, completed the team, both armed with P-90s and looking alert but calm. Veterans of gate operations. The jumper's sensors picked up M4H-212 as they approached, a barren moon orbiting a gas giant, its surface cratered and lifeless. But ancient sensors detected the installation immediately. A structure buried beneath centuries of dust and micrometeorite impacts, still emitting a faint power signature. There, Sheppard said, highlighting the location on the HUD. Ancient construction, approximately 40 meters below the surface. Looks like the moon's been slowly burying it over the millennia. Can we land nearby? Tony asked. Better than that. Watch this. Sheppard took the jumper into a dive, and Tony felt his stomach drop as they plummeted toward the surface. At the last moment, Sheppard triggered something, a scanner pulse maybe, and the ground simply opened. An entrance, hidden and sealed for 10,000 years, responding to the ATA gene and revealing a landing bay carved into the moon's crust. They descended into darkness, jumper lights illuminating ancient metal walls scarred by time but intact. The bay was massive, designed for multiple ships, though theirs was the only one. As they landed, lights flickered to life throughout the facility, responding to their presence. Ancient installation designated M4H-212 Alpha, Jarvis reported through Tony's earpiece. Preliminary scans indicate intact structure, minimal geological damage. Power reserves at approximately 3% of capacity, sufficient for basic sensors and lighting, insufficient for weapons or shields. The team disembarked, weapons ready. The installation stretched before them. Corridors leading deeper into the moon, control rooms visible through transparent walls, and at the center, the unmistakable shape of a weapons platform. 100 drone weapons sat in launch tubes, golden and deadly and dormant. This is incredible, Tony breathed, running his hand over a control console. It activated at his touch, responding to the gene, and information flooded into his awareness. The installation was intact, fully functional, it just needed power. We could have this operational in hours once we bring a reactor. Assuming nothing's living here, Ronon said, particle magnum sweeping corners. Ancient facilities attract scavengers. And worse. They moved deeper, checking each room. The installation was a masterpiece of defensive engineering: automated drone launchers, shield generators, sensors capable of tracking ships across light years, even a small command center with holographic tactical displays. Everything the ancients had needed to defend Pegasus, abandoned when they fled. In the command center, Tony accessed the facility's logs. Information scrolled past, most of it degraded, but fragments remained. Battle reports. Casualty lists. Desperate final messages as the ancients realized they were losing the war. Cannot hold tyrannies much longer. Wraith numbers exceed projections by factor of 20. Requesting immediate evacuation. Primary hive ship destroyed, but 2 more emerged from hyperspace. Drone weapons depleted. Shields failing. If anyone receives this. Voted to evacuate Pegasus entirely. All defensive installations to be placed in standby mode pending future reactivation. May the ancestors forgive our. The logs cut off. 10,000 years of silence. They gave up, Tony said quietly. They had all this technology, all this power, and they just left. They were dying, Teyla said softly, reading another terminal. The plague. It is mentioned here, a sickness that spread through their people, turning their own biology against them. They fled not because they lost the war, but because they lost the ability to fight it. Sheppard was examining the drone weapons. These are fully stocked. 100 drones per tube, and there are 6 tubes. 600 ancient drones, if we can get them powered. A sound echoed through the facility, distant, organic, wrong. Everyone froze. Jarvis, scan for life signs, Tony sub-vocalized. Detecting multiple biosignatures, sir. Approximately 40 meters below our position and approaching. Energy readings consistent with. The wall exploded inward, and Wraith warriors poured through. They were nightmares made flesh. Pale humanoid forms with long white hair, armored in organic matter that seemed grown rather than worn, hands ending in claws that could pierce steel. Their faces were grotesque, feeding slits where mouths should be, eyes that burned with predatory intelligence. Ronon fired first, his particle magnum tearing through the lead Wraith's chest. The creature screamed and fell, but 3 more leaped over its body. P-90 gunfire erupted from forward and stackhouse, bullets sparking off Wraith armor. Teyla's stunner took one down, but the others kept coming. Tony deployed the armor in 3 seconds, nanites flowing from his pack and assembling around him. The HUD activated, targeting systems acquiring threats. He fired repulsors at the nearest Wraith, and the creature was blown backward into the wall hard enough to crack ancient metal. There's more. Sheppard shouted, firing his P-90 in controlled bursts. They've been hibernating here. We woke them up. More Wraith emerged from the breach. Warriors, drones, something larger that had to be a commander. They moved with terrifying speed and coordination, telepathically linked, adapting to the team's tactics in real time. A Wraith warrior dodged Tony's repulsor blast and lunged at him, clawed hand reaching for his chest, for his arc reactor. Tony caught its wrist with the armor's enhanced strength, felt the Wraith's feeding mechanism activate against the armor's surface, trying to drain life force through steel and technology. Jarvis, redirect power to repulsors. Maximum output. The arc reactor surged. Tony's hand-mounted repulsor fired at point-blank range, incinerating the Wraith completely. But they kept coming. 10. 15. 20 Wraith warriors, all focused on eliminating the intruders who'd invaded their hibernation site. Fall back to the jumper. Sheppard ordered, covering the retreat with precision fire. They fought through corridors, every step contested. Ronon's particle magnum was devastatingly effective, each shot killed instantly, but he couldn't shoot fast enough. The Wraith were overwhelming them through sheer numbers. Tony flew backward, providing covering fire with repulsors and micromissiles, when his sensors detected something. The weapons platform. It still had power, minimal, but enough. Sheppard. The drones. I can activate them. We don't have enough power. I do. Tony landed by the nearest launch tube, placed his armored hand on the control panel, and did something probably insane. He channeled power directly from the arc reactor into the ancient systems, using his body as a conduit. The armor's power reserves dropped catastrophically, but the launch tube activated. A single golden drone emerged, hovering in the air, quantum processor coming online and assessing the situation. It detected the Wraith warriors, calculated optimal targeting solutions, and fired. The drone moved like liquid light, phasing through walls and warriors with equal ease. Where it struck, Wraith died, clean holes punched through their armored bodies, killing instantly. It eliminated 3 warriors in 2 seconds, then accelerated after more, hunting through the facility with ancient precision. Tony activated a second tube, channeling more power. 2 drones. 3. 5. The ancient weapons spread through the installation, and the Wraith advance faltered as they realized they were now the prey. Everyone move. Tony shouted. Get to the jumper. They ran, drones providing cover, carving through Wraith warriors with ruthless efficiency. The team reached the landing bay, piled into the jumper, and Sheppard launched before the hatch was fully closed. As they rose through the entrance shaft, Tony looked back and saw the remaining drones systematically eliminating every Wraith in the facility. That, Sheppard said, breathing hard, was way too close. Tony's armor retracted, and he slumped in the co-pilot's seat. The arc reactor in his chest was burning hot from the power draw, but it had held. The installation secured. We lost some drones activating them early, but once we bring a full reactor, we can restock and power up the entire platform. And we know the Wraith are using ancient installations as hibernation sites, Teyla added. Which means other defensive platforms may also be compromised. More work for us, then, Ronon said, reloading his particle magnum. Clear them out one by one. As the jumper climbed toward orbit, Tony looked back at the moon. Down there, ancient technology was waking up, weapons that hadn't fired in 10,000 years, now active again because someone finally had the audacity to try. 2 hive ships were coming. But Atlantis wouldn't face them alone. Not anymore. The second arc reactor came online 31 hours after the first, and the third 6 hours after that. McKay had been right about the exponential scaling. Each new reactor required less city power to fabricate because the previous ones were already contributing to the grid. By hour 42, Atlantis was running at 68% capacity, and Tony could feel the difference through the gene. Systems that had been dormant for months were coming back online. Secondary shield emitters, auxiliary sensors, entire sections of the city that had been dark now glowing with renewed life. This is remarkable, Zelenka said, monitoring the power distribution network. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but his smile was genuine. We have not had this much power since the ZPM depleted. Mr. Stark, you have given us fighting chance. We're not done yet, Tony said, though exhaustion was pulling at him. He'd been awake for nearly 50 hours straight, sustained by coffee, determination, and the occasional power nap in the lab. 9 more reactors to go, and we're down to, he checked the countdown Jarvis was maintaining, 28 hours before the hive ships arrive. McKay stumbled into the lab carrying 3 tablets and looking like death. I've run the projections. If we maintain current fabrication rates across all 3 matrices, we'll have 11 reactors online when the Wraith arrive. Not quite the full 12, but close enough to give us 90% power capacity. Close enough to activate the full defensive grid? Tony asked. Theoretically, yes. The weapons platforms on Atlantis itself, the drone chairs, the rail guns, the shield emitters, all require significant power. With 11 reactors, we could run full shields and weapons simultaneously for approximately 8 hours of sustained combat. After that, McKay shrugged. We'd need to make choices about what to keep powered. 8 hours. Tony did the math. How long can a hive ship sustain an attack? Depends on the hive, Sheppard said, entering with Ronon and a holographic tactical display. We've faced hive ships before. Some are aggressive, throwing everything at us immediately. Others are patient, probing defenses, looking for weaknesses. 2 hives working together. He gestured at the display showing the approaching Wraith signatures. They'll coordinate. One will attack while the other observes, learning from what works and what doesn't. Then they'll switch, applying lessons learned. It's how they overwhelmed ancient defenses, adaptive tactics over overwhelming force. Ronon studied the tactical situation with a warrior's eye. We need to kill one fast. Make the other one cautious, by time. The M4H-212 weapons platform, Tony said. If we get it fully operational before they arrive, we can create a crossfire. Force them to split their attention between Atlantis and the moon installation. Already in motion, Sheppard confirmed. We're taking reactor number 4 there in 6 hours. Teams assembled, me, Ronon, Teyla, Dr. Zelenka to handle installation setup, and you if you're still conscious. Tony looked at the fabrication matrices, at the reactors taking shape in molecular assembly chambers, at the holographic display showing 2 massive organic ships approaching through hyperspace. Every choice mattered now. Every hour counted. I'll be ready, he said. Weir appeared on the lab's communication screen. Gentlemen, we have a situation. The genii just contacted us again. They're detecting multiple gate activations across the sector. The Wraith aren't just sending hive ships. They're gating ground forces to worlds near Atlantis, establishing forward positions. They're surrounding us, McKay said, voice tight. Classic encirclement strategy. They'll cut off our escape routes through the gate, then attack the city with hive ships while ground forces prevent evacuation. How many worlds? Sheppard asked. At least 7 that the genii can confirm. Possibly more. Tony felt the trap closing. We can't defend 7 worlds simultaneously. We don't have the resources or the people. No, we're agreed. But we can make sure those worlds are evacuated before the Wraith ground forces arrive. I'm authorizing emergency gate operations. Dial every endangered world, send through teams to facilitate evacuation to safer locations. We'll coordinate with the genii, the Athosians, anyone willing to provide refuge. That'll drain power, McKay warned. Each gate activation costs 0.3% of reserves. 7 worlds, multiple trips to evacuate populations. We have the power now, Tony said. Use it. That's what it's for, saving lives. Weir nodded. Agreed. Colonel, coordinate the evacuation operations. Dr. McKay, Mr. Stark, continue reactor fabrication. We need every ounce of power we can generate. She paused. And everyone, get some rest when you can. We're going to need to be sharp when those hive ships arrive. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of fabrication, integration, and preparation. Tony managed 2 hours of sleep on a lab couch while Jarvis monitored the assembly matrices. When he woke, Reactor 4 was complete and ready for transport, and Sheppard's team was gearing up in the jumper bay. You look terrible, Sheppard observed as Tony arrived in the Mark 6 armor, systems running diagnostic checks. You should see the other guy. Oh wait, there is no other guy. Just me running on caffeine and spite. Tony's HUD showed green across the board, armor fully functional, arc reactor at optimal output, Jarvis monitoring all systems. Let's go install a weapons platform. The jumper flight to M4H-212 was tense but uneventful. The ancient drones had cleared the facility of Wraith during their first visit, and Ronon's team had done a thorough sweep to confirm no survivors remained. Now the installation waited, lights active but systems dormant, ready for the power to bring it fully online. Zelenka directed the reactor installation with meticulous precision, connecting it to the ancient power distribution grid while Tony monitored the integration through his armor sensors. Jarvis provided real-time analysis, catching potential issues before they became problems. Power coupling stable, Zelenka reported. Electromagnetic field coherence at 98%. Thermal output nominal. Initiating startup sequence. The reactor activated, and Tony felt it through the gene, a pulse of power flooding through the installation, waking systems that had slept for 10 millennia. Lights brightened throughout the facility. The weapons platform's control systems came online, holographic displays materializing in the command center. Shield generators hummed to life, creating a protective bubble around the entire installation. Weapons status? Sheppard asked. Teyla checked the ancient console, her fingers moving confidently across the interface. She'd been learning to use the gene-activated systems quickly. 6 launch tubes, each containing 94 drones, we expended 6 during the Wraith attack. Total weapons complement, 564 ancient drones. Targeting systems operational. Sensor grid online and integrating with Atlantis' network. On the holographic display, M4H212's position appeared in the Atlantis defensive grid. A second node, extending their coverage significantly. The sensors were powerful enough to track ships throughout the system and into nearby hyperspace corridors. We're not just defending anymore, Tony said, studying the tactical situation. We're creating a network. Each installation we activate adds to our sensor coverage, our weapons coverage, our ability to coordinate defense across multiple positions. The ancients designed it this way, Zelenka said, pulling up ancient database files. During the war, they maintained hundreds of defensive installations across Pegasus, all networked together. When Wraith attacked one position, drones from nearby installations could be redirected to support. It was coordinated galaxy-wide defense grid. And we're rebuilding it, Sheppard said. One installation at a time. Ronon was at the window, looking out at the barren moon surface and the gas giant looming overhead. 2 hive ships are coming here. To Atlantis. But what happens when they realize we're activating ancient defenses across the galaxy? They'll come in force, dozens of hives, maybe more. Then we'd better be ready when they do, Tony said. He pulled up projections Jarvis had been running. With the arc reactor network, we can fabricate drones to restock these installations. We can build more reactors, activate more platforms, expand the defensive grid exponentially. It's the same bootstrap process. Each installation we activate makes us stronger, gives us more resources to activate the next one. Assuming we survive the next 48 hours, McKay's voice came through the comms from Atlantis. Which, I feel obliged to point out, is not guaranteed. The hive ships will reach weapons range in approximately 21 hours, and we're still 3 reactors short of full capacity. Then we'd better finish fabricating them, Tony said. They flew back to Atlantis as twin suns set over the alien ocean, painting the city's towers in colors of amber and gold. More refugees had arrived, the evacuation operations were proceeding, though not without complications. Some worlds refused to leave their homes. Others had nowhere to go. The genii were being difficult about accepting non-military refugees. The political situation was as complex as the tactical one. In the fabrication lab, reactors 5, 6, and 7 were taking shape. Tony worked alongside McKay and Zelenka, fine-tuning integration parameters, optimizing power distribution, preparing Atlantis for a battle that would determine whether humanity's foothold in Pegasus survived. You know what's funny? McKay said during a rare quiet moment, both of them staring at holographic power grid displays. A week ago, I would have resented you. Billionaire genius shows up with his fancy armor and his arc reactor, acting like he can solve problems I've been working on for months. I would have hated it. And now? Tony asked. Now I'm just grateful you're here. Because without you, we'd be evacuating through the gate right now, preparing to blow Atlantis to keep it from Wraith hands. Instead, we're about to fight back with more power than this city's had since we arrived. McKay looked at Tony. So, thanks. For showing up. For helping. For giving us a chance. Tony didn't know what to say to that. He settled for, don't get sappy on me, McKay. We still have 3 reactors to build and hive ships to kill. Right. Yes. Back to work. But McKay was smiling slightly. Reactor 7 came online at hour 63. 8 and 9 at hour 71. Power reserves climbed past 90%, and Atlantis transformed. Systems that had been shut down for months activated automatically. Advanced sensors, secondary weapons platforms, backup shield generators, environmental controls and previously abandoned sections of the city. The ancient AI optimized everything, learning from the arc reactor's unique properties, integrating human technology with ancient design in ways neither alone could have achieved. It's beautiful, Zelenko whispered, watching the city come alive on his monitors. Is like watching sleeping giant wake up. At hour 78, Atlantis's long-range sensors detected the hive ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. 2 massive organic vessels, each one over a mile long, bristling with weapons and carrying thousands of Wraith warriors and dart fighters. Contact, the gate tech announced over citywide comms. 2 hive ships, bearing 187 Mark 35. Current speed 0.5 light speed. ETA to weapons range, 4 hours, 12 minutes. In the control room, Elizabeth were stood before the holographic display showing the approaching threats. Around her, the command staff assembled. Sheppard, Ronon, Teyla, McKay, Tony in his armor, and a dozen other key personnel. This is it, we're said quietly. Everything we've prepared for comes down to the next few hours. Colonel Sheppard will command tactical operations from the drone chair. Dr. McKay will manage power distribution and shields. Mr. Stark will coordinate with the M4H212 weapons platform, creating crossfire zones. Ronon, you'll lead ground teams if the Wraith attempt boarding actions. Teyla, you'll coordinate with allied worlds through the gate for any support they can provide. She looked at each of them. The Wraith expect us to run or hide. They expect us to be prey, like every human they've encountered for 10,000 years. Let's show them what happens when prey fights back. Indeed, Teyla said softly. Tony stood at a window, watching those distant points of light growing slowly brighter against the alien stars. 2 hive ships. Thousands of Wraith. Technology that had evolved to hunt humans with perfect efficiency. And Atlantis, finally awake, finally ready, powered by a combination of ancient genius and human stubbornness that refused to accept being prey. Jarvis, Tony said quietly. Run final systems check. All weapons, all shields, all reactors. I want to know if anything's going to fail before the shooting starts. All systems optimal, sir. The arc reactor network is performing beyond initial projections. Atlantis is operating at 93% capacity and rising as the final reactors come online. Good. Tony activated his armor's full systems, felt the familiar weight and power settle around him. Because we're about to find out if humanity belongs in this galaxy. Sir, if I may. Based on your actions over the past week, I believe the question is not whether humanity belongs here, but whether the Wraith can afford for you to remain. Tony smiled grimly inside his helmet. Let's find out. The hive ships came in slowly, cautiously, their organic sensors scanning Atlantis from maximum range. Tony watched them from the command center, his armor's sensors tied into the city's network, seeing what the ancient system saw, 2 massive biomechanical nightmares, their hulls rippling with what looked like muscle tissue, weapons ports opening and closing like breathing orifices. They're confused, Sheppard reported from the drone chair deep in Atlantis's control center. He was interfaced directly with the city's weapons, His consciousness merged with ancient AI. Their sensors are detecting power readings way above what they expected. They know something's changed. Good, McKay said from his position at the shield controls. Let them be confused. Confusion breeds mistakes. His fingers flew across ancient interfaces, coordinating with the arc reactor network. Shields at maximum strength. We can sustain full power for approximately 9 hours of continuous bombardment, assuming no catastrophic damage to generators. Tony was monitoring the M4H-212 weapons platform through his HUD, Jarvis maintaining the quantum link between Atlantis and the Moon installation. Platform is ready. 564 drones armed and tracking targets. Zelenka confirms all systems optimal. Wraith hive ships entering weapons range in 60 seconds, the gate tech announced. We're stood at the center of the command room, hands clasped behind her back, posture perfectly composed despite the tension radiating through everyone present. Colonel Sheppard, you have tactical command. Engage at your discretion. Copy that. Sheppard's voice was calm, professional. Stark, when I give the word, hit them with everything from the platform. I want them focused on the moon, not expecting Atlantis to fight back. Understood. 40 seconds. Tony's heart was pounding, arc reactor pulsing in rhythm with his anxiety. He'd fought aliens before, Chitauri pouring through a portal over New York, Loki's magic, destruction on a massive scale. But that had been his city, his home, his world. This was different. This was 3 million light-years from everything familiar, defending a city that wasn't his, protecting people he'd known for less than a week. And yet, somehow, it mattered more than anything he'd done since Afghanistan. 20 seconds. Hive ships adjusting course, sensors reported. They're splitting up, one heading for Atlantis directly, the other circling toward attack position behind the planet. They're flanking us, Ronon observed, studying the tactical display with a warrior's eye. Smart. One draws our fire while the other comes from an unexpected angle. Not unexpected if we saw it coming, Sheppard countered. Stark, take the one circling. Hit it before it reaches position. I'll handle the direct attacker. 10 seconds. Weapons range achieved. Hive ships are powering weapons. All hands, this is Dr. Weir. Battle stations. Prepare for combat. 5 seconds. Tony could see the lead hive ship now with his own eyes through the command center windows, a grotesque organic mass silhouetted against stars, growing larger as it approached. Weapons ports glowed green along its hull, charging. 3 seconds. 2. 1. Fire. Sheppard commanded. Tony triggered the M4H-212 platform. 564 ancient drones launched simultaneously, golden lights erupting from the moon's surface like a swarm of angry fireflies. They accelerated instantly to near-relativistic speeds, quantum processors calculating optimal attack vectors, coordinating through the ancient network. The hive ship circling behind the planet detected them too late. Drones phased through its organic shields as designed, ancient technology specifically engineered to counter Wraith defenses, and hammered into the hull. Explosions rippled across the massive vessel as drones punched through armor, penetrated deep into internal structures, detonated with devastating effect. From Atlantis, Sheppard launched the city's drone complement, 100 weapons rising from concealed launch bays, adding to the golden swarm. The lead hive ship tried to evade, its massive bulk twisting with surprising agility, but Sheppard was faster. Drones curved in impossible trajectories, hunting, pursuing, striking. The hive ship's weapons opened fire, massive energy blasts that would have vaporized conventional ships. They hammered into Atlantis's shields, and the city shuddered. Power consumption spiked as McKay rerouted energy from the arc reactors, maintaining shield integrity. Shields holding at 89%, McKay reported. That was just their opening salvo. When they get serious. The second hive ship, damaged but still functional, returned fire at the moon platform. Green energy beams lanced across space, and Tony watched through remote sensors as they struck M4H-212 shields. The ancient barriers held, but power consumption was massive. Platform shields at 72%, Zelenka's voice came through comms from the installation. We can sustain perhaps 10 more minutes of this bombardment before shields fail. Then we end this in 10 minutes, Tony said. He activated his armor's flight systems. Sheppard, I'm going out there. Stark, that's suicide. It's tactical. I draw fire, maneuver faster than either hive ship can track, give the drones clear attack runs. Trust me. A pause. Then, you get yourself killed, McKay's going to be insufferable about having to write your eulogy. Go. Tony launched from Atlantis's tower, arc reactor flaring, repulsors engaging. The armor accelerated toward the nearest hive ship, and immediately every Wraith sensor locked onto him, small target, high energy output, moving with impossible agility. Dart fighters erupted from launch bays in the hive ship's belly, dozens of them, organic spacecraft piloted by Wraith drones, moving with that terrifying biological speed he remembered from P3X-421. They swarmed toward him, weapons firing. Jarvis, evasive pattern Delta 7. Keep us moving, don't let them get a targeting solution. Engaging, sir. The armor danced through space, maneuvering with precision no biological pilot could match. Darts pursued, but Tony was faster, spinning through their formations, repulsors firing, picking off fighters one by one. Behind him, ancient drones followed his path, using the chaos to strike at the hive ship's weapons ports. Explosions blossomed across the massive vessel's hull. The hive ship was taking damage, serious damage, but it was enormous, over a mile long, and each destroyed section was a tiny fraction of its total mass. We're not doing enough damage, Tony said, dodging another dart swarm. These things are too big to kill quickly. The ancients fought the Wraith for 100 years, Sheppard reminded him. Hive ships are designed to absorb punishment. We need to hit critical systems, power generation, life support, command centers. Where are those located? We don't know. Every hive ship is different, grown organically, unique configuration. You have to find them by trial and error. Tony switched to penetrating scans, Jarvis analyzing the hive ship structure. Dense organic matter, biological power systems distributed throughout, no obvious central reactor. It was like fighting a living creature, no single weak point, just massive redundancy. Trying something. Tony said. He dove toward the hive ship's hull, accelerating to maximum speed, and at the last moment fired his uni-beam, the arc reactor's full output channeled through his chest-mounted projector. The beam burned through organic armor, penetrated deep, and Tony followed the hole inside the hive ship itself. Stark, what are you doing? Weir's voice, concerned. Being creative. Tony flew through organic corridors that pulsed like intestines, walls breathing around him, Wraith warriors scrambling in response to the intruder. He fired repulsors at anything that moved, following Jarvis's scans deeper into the ship's structure. There, a concentration of energy signatures, biological systems generating massive power. The hive ship's primary power matrix, distributed across what looked like a series of organic chambers. Tony launched every micromissile he had, targeting the chambers, then activated his thrusters and flew out the hole he'd entered through as explosions rippled behind him. He cleared the hull just as the hive ship's midsection erupted in a cascade of biological detonations. Power failed throughout massive sections. Lights died. Weapons went offline. The ship's organic structure convulsed, dying. Critical hit. McKay shouted. The hive ship's losing power. It's venting atmosphere and biological fluids. Sheppard, now. Ancient drones converged on the wounded hive ship, hammering its compromised structure. The massive vessel tried to turn, to retreat, but it was too damaged. A final volley of drones struck the command sections, and the hive ship simply came apart, massive chunks of organic matter drifting in the vacuum. One down. The second hive is withdrawing, sensors reported. It's breaking off attack and moving back toward hyperspace entry point. Don't let it escape, Ronon urged. If it reports back. I know, Sheppard said. More drones launched from Atlantis, pursuing the fleeing hive ship. But it was damaged and slow, bleeding atmosphere, and the drones caught it before it could jump. They struck methodically, surgically, targeting the drive systems that would let it escape. The hive ship's hyperspace window opened, a tear in space, but collapsed immediately as ancient drones destroyed the organic hyperspace generators. Stranded, dying, the hive ship made one final desperate attack run toward Atlantis, weapons firing wildly. Atlantis's shields held. Barely. Power dropped to 63% as the arc reactor strained to maintain barriers against the dying ship's final fury. But McKay held the shields, rerouting power, compensating for fluctuations, keeping the city safe. And then Sheppard launched Atlantis's entire remaining drone complement, 200 ancient weapons, every single one the city had left, directly at the hive ship's command section. The golden swarm struck simultaneously, punching through organic armor with coordinated precision, and the hive ship died. No explosion, no dramatic detonation. It simply stopped, ceased being a living thing and became debris, floating dead in space around Atlantis. Silence fell in the command center. Both hive ships neutralized, the gate tech reported quietly. No Wraith life signs detected. Dart fighters without hive ship support they're just drifting. Powering down. Tony flew back to Atlantis slowly, armor scorched and systems complaining, but functional. Through his faceplate, he could see the debris field, 2 massive hive ships, torn apart, dead in space. How many Wraith had been aboard? Thousands, probably. Maybe tens of thousands. And they'd killed them all. Mr. Stark, Weir's voice was carefully controlled. Land on the East Pier. Dr. Beckett wants to check you over. I'm fine. That's an order. You just flew inside a hive ship and detonated its power systems from within. Humor me. Tony landed as directed, armor retracting. The moment his feet touched ancient metal, exhaustion hit him like a physical blow. He'd been running on adrenaline and determination, and now that the battle was over, his body remembered it hadn't slept properly in days. Sheppard was waiting, looking equally exhausted but satisfied. That was insane. Effective, but insane. Flying inside a hive ship. You have any idea how many regulations you just violated? I'm a civilian consultant. I don't think military regulations apply. Fair point. Sheppard extended his hand. Good work, Stark. We couldn't have done this without you. Tony shook it, feeling the weight of that acknowledgement. Team effort. McKay's shields, your drone coordination, Zelenka at the platform, everyone contributed. Yeah, but you gave us the power to fight back. Before you arrived, we were just surviving, rationing energy, hoping we could last long enough for Earth to send help. Now. Sheppard gestured at Atlantis, at the lights blazing in every tower, at systems active and functional. Now we're actually defending this galaxy. In the command center, Weir was coordinating aftermath operations. The evacuated worlds needed to know they could return home. Allied worlds needed to understand what had happened, that Atlantis had just destroyed 2 hive ships, that humanity wasn't helpless in Pegasus anymore. We did it. We actually did it. 2 hive ships destroyed with 0 casualties on our side. Do you understand how unprecedented that is? The ancients fought the Wraith for a century and barely managed victories like this, and we did it on our first real engagement with full power. The arc reactor network performed beyond specifications, Zelenka added, pulling up performance data. We sustained shield and weapons simultaneously for entire battle with power reserves never dropping below 60%. Is miraculous, actually. 3 weeks after the battle, Tony stood in the fabrication lab watching arc reactor number 47 take shape in the molecular assembly matrix. The city had become a factory, producing power cores at an accelerating rate, each one powering new installations, extending the defensive network, transforming Pegasus from a Wraith hunting ground into contested territory. We've activated 18 defensive installations, McKay reported, updating the holographic map of Pegasus. Golden markers indicated active ancient platforms, each one networked into a growing grid. Sensor coverage now extends across 42% of the galaxy. Early warning systems are operational in 5 major sectors. And the Wraith have noticed. How many hive ships have we detected? We're asked. She looked tired but determined. The past weeks had been a constant stream of diplomatic negotiations, resource management, and strategic planning. 37 confirmed hive ships have awakened from hibernation, Sheppard said from his position at the tactical display. They're moving in coordinated patterns, probing our defenses, testing response times. So far they've avoided direct engagement, but that won't last. They're learning, adapting. Classic Wraith behavior. Tony studied the enemy movements, Jarvis overlaying predictive patterns. They're mapping our network. Trying to identify gaps in coverage, weak points they can exploit. We need to expand faster, get more installations online before they figure out our strategy. We're constrained by resources, Zelenka pointed out. Each installation requires arc reactor, personnel for activation and maintenance, drones for defense. We are stretching thin across entire galaxy. Then we get help, Teyla said. She'd been coordinating with allied worlds, and the results were promising. The Genii have offered military support. Ground troops to garrison installations, technical personnel to assist with operations. The travelers have advanced ship technology and are willing to patrol sectors our sensors cover. Even some Wraith culled worlds are sending volunteers, people who want to fight back. Ronon looked up from where he was cleaning his particle magnum. They're finally believing we can win. That changes everything. A chime indicated incoming gate activation. Unscheduled off-world activation, the gate tech announced. Receiving IDC, it's Colonel Carter from Earth. Weir's expression brightened. Open the iris. Samantha Carter stepped through the event horizon, followed by a small team from Stargate Command. Tony had heard about her, legendary astrophysicist and Air Force officer, one of the original SG-1 members, and according to McKay, the only person whose scientific credentials actually intimidated him. Colonel Carter greeted her warmly. Welcome to Atlantis. Dr. Weir. Good to be here. Carter looked around the gate room, and Tony caught the moment she noticed the power readings on the displays. Your energy output has increased by over 500% since my last visit. What have you? She stopped, seeing Tony in his Iron Man armor. You're Tony Stark. Guilty. You're Colonel Samantha Carter, astrophysicist extraordinaire and the person McKay won't stop mentioning whenever he wants to prove a point about something. Carter smiled. Rodney always did have strong opinions. I'm here because General Landry received your reports about the arc reactor network and the defensive grid reactivation. The IOA is interested. Interested good, or interested bad? Sheppard asked. Interested cautiously optimistic. The SGC has been fighting Goa'uld, replicators, and Ori for years using ancient technology we barely understand. What you've done here. Integrating human innovation with ancient systems, creating a sustainable power solution, rebuilding defensive infrastructure the ancients themselves abandoned, it's unprecedented. She turned to Tony. Mr. Stark, I'd like to review your arc reactor designs. If we can replicate this technology in the Milky Way, we could revolutionize Earth's defensive capabilities. The designs are available, Tony said. But the reactors require the ancient gene to integrate properly with their technology. You'd need gene therapy recipients to manage the installations. We have over 100 gene carriers in the SGC program now, Carter said. Dr. Beckett's gene therapy has proven remarkably successful. This could work. They moved to the conference room, and Carter presented the SGC's proposal. Earth wanted to establish similar defensive networks in the Milky Way, using arc reactors to power ancient outposts, weapons platforms, and sensor arrays that had been dormant since the ancients ascended. The Ori threat was growing, and Earth needed every advantage. There's a larger strategic opportunity here, Carter explained, pulling up a galaxy-wide display. The ancients didn't just build in Pegasus and the Milky Way. Their civilization spanned multiple galaxies. There are ancient installations in Ida, in Athala, possibly in dozens of galaxies we haven't even explored yet. If we can develop a systematic approach to reactivating these sites, powering them with your reactors, we could create an intergalactic defense network. That's ambitious, Weir said carefully. That's necessary, Carter corrected. The threats we face. The Ori, the Wraith, potentially the replicators again, they're not going away. We need infrastructure. We need coordination. We need humanity to move from reactive survival to proactive defense. Tony listened to the strategic discussion, thinking about scale. They'd activated 18 installations in Pegasus. Carter was proposing hundreds across multiple galaxies. The resources required, the coordination, the sheer logistics. It's possible, he said slowly. But it requires something we don't have yet, reliable intergalactic transport. The Stargate connects galaxies, but the energy requirements are massive. You can't move equipment, personnel, and resources through a wormhole that requires a ZPM to establish. The Asgard gave us their entire knowledge base before they died, Carter said. Including hyperspace drive technology, beaming technology, and advanced ship construction. The Daedalus-class battlecruisers can reach Pegasus in 3 weeks using ZPM-enhanced drives. We're building more ships, improving the design. Give us a year, and we'll have a fleet capable of supporting operations across multiple galaxies. Then we have a timeline, Weir said decisively. We continue network expansion in Pegasus, establish the proof of concept, develop standardized protocols for installation activation and maintenance. Earth builds the transport infrastructure. In 12 months, we coordinate a joint operation to begin systematic reactivation of ancient defensive sites across known space. McKay was already pulling up logistical calculations. We'll need to increase arc reactor production by a factor of 10. Currently producing approximately 30 units per month across Atlantis's 3 fabrication matrices. To support hundreds of installations, we'd need more fabrication matrices, Tony finished. The ancients built facilities specifically for large-scale manufacturing. If we can locate and activate those, we multiply our production capacity exponentially. The ancient database lists a facility on Tyrannis, Zelenka said, searching files. Designated as primary manufacturing center for defensive systems during the Wraith War. But planet was evacuated when supervolcano became active. Facility may be buried or destroyed. Or it might be intact and waiting, Sheppard said. Worth investigating. Over the next hour, they planned. Carter would return to Earth with complete arc reactor specifications and installation protocols. The SGC would begin identifying ancient sites in the Milky Way suitable for reactivation. Atlantis would continue Pegasus network expansion while searching for the Tyrannis manufacturing facility. After the meeting, Carter found Tony on one of Atlantis's balconies, looking out over the ocean. I wanted to say thank you, she said. What you've built here, it's giving hope to people across 2 galaxies. The SGC has been fighting desperate battles for years, always one step behind, always scrambling to survive. For the first time, we're talking about getting ahead of the threats. I'm just an engineer solving problems, Tony said. You're more than that, and you know it. Carter studied him. I read your file. Afghanistan, the arc reactor, becoming Iron Man, New York, the Avengers. You've spent years using your intelligence to protect people. Now you're doing it on an intergalactic scale. That matters. Tony thought about that cave, about Inson's last words. Don't waste your life. He tried to honor that ever since, building better technology, fighting better fights, protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. And now, 3 million light years from home, he was doing exactly that. The Wraith won't give up, he said. When they realize we're systematically reactivating ancient defenses, they'll come at us with everything. Dozens of hive ships, maybe more. Then we'll be ready. Earth, Atlantis, every allied world working together. That's how we win, not as separate groups fighting isolated battles, but as a unified force. Carter smiled. Rodney must hate having you around. Another genius telling him he's wrong about things. We've reached an understanding. He's insufferable but brilliant. I'm arrogant but effective. Together, we make things work. That's the best kind of partnership. Carter left the next morning, carrying data crystals with arc reactor specifications and a promise from Earth to support network expansion. Tony returned to the fabrication lab, where McKay was already optimizing production schedules. 47 reactors complete, McKay reported. Another 12 in fabrication. At this rate, we'll have sufficient power generation to support 30 active installations within 2 months. The network is growing faster than even my optimistic projections suggested. And the Wraith are watching, Tony reminded him. Every installation we activate is another beacon saying humans are here, fighting back. Eventually they're going to stop probing and start attacking in force. Let them come, Ronon said, entering with Teyla. We've fortified 8 worlds with installation defenses. Trained local militias. Distributed weapons and supplies. Pegasus isn't helpless anymore. Teyla pulled up reports from allied worlds. The psychological impact cannot be understated. For generations, my people have hidden from the Wraith, lived in fear, accepted culling as inevitable. Now they see ancient weapons protecting their skies, see humans standing and fighting, see the Wraith hesitating. Hope is returning to Pegasus. Hope's dangerous, McKay warned. It makes people take risks. What happens when a world decides to openly defy the Wraith because they think our network will protect them, and we can't get installations activated fast enough? Then we prioritize, we're said, joining the discussion. We've established a council with the genii, the travelers, and representatives from 20 allied worlds. They're helping identify which worlds are most vulnerable, most strategic, most worth defending. It's not perfect, but it's better than operating blindly. Sheppard appeared on the communication screen. Speaking of priorities, we've located the Tyrannies manufacturing facility. Sensors confirm it's buried under volcanic ash, but the structure is intact. If we can excavate it and restore power, we're looking at 50 fabrication matrices, enough to produce thousands of arc reactors. Tony felt his pulse quicken. Thousands of reactors. Hundreds of installations. A defensive network that could actually contest Wraith control of Pegasus. How dangerous is the excavation? We're asked. The supervolcano is still active. Seismic activity is constant. If it erupts while we're there, Sheppard shrugged. Bad day for everyone involved. But if we succeed, we multiply our capabilities by 50, Tony said. That's worth the risk. Agreed, we're decided. Colonel, assemble a team. Mr. Stark, you'll accompany them with Dr. McKay and Zelenka. I want that facility operational. The mission launched 2 days later. Tony flew down to Tyrannies' surface in the Mark 6 armor, accompanying a puddle jumper carrying the team and excavation equipment. The planet was beautiful and deadly. Active lava flows visible across the southern continent, ash clouds darkening skies, ground trembling constantly with seismic activity. There, McKay said, pointing at sensor readings. The facility is 200 meters below the surface, preserved under ash layers. If we can drill down, create access points. Too slow, Tony interrupted. He'd been analyzing the situation through Jarvis's sensors. The volcanic activity is increasing. We don't have time for careful excavation. I'm going to blast a hole. Blast a? Are you insane? You'll destabilize the entire structure. Or I'll create access in minutes instead of days. Jarvis, calculate optimal penetration points. I want to punch through ash and rock without damaging the facility itself. Calculations complete, sir. Recommend 3 simultaneous strikes at coordinates I'm highlighting on your HUD. Tony flew to the first position, charged his uni-beam, and fired directly downward. The arc reactor's full output channeled into a coherent beam that vaporized volcanic ash, melted rock, and carved a shaft 200 meters straight down. He repeated the process at the other 2 coordinates, and within minutes they had access. You're completely mad, McKay said, staring at the smoking holes. But it worked. Let's go. They descended through still-hot rock, armor protecting Tony while the others used the jumper's shields. At the bottom, ancient doors waited. Sealed for 10,000 years, but responding immediately to the ATA gene. The facility beyond was staggering. 50 molecular assembly matrices, each one capable of producing arc reactors, drone weapons, ship components, anything programmable into their databases. Power distribution networks designed to handle massive loads. Storage chambers filled with raw materials, naquata, trinium, refined elements the ancients had stockpiled before evacuation. This is incredible, Zelenka whispered, his eyes reflecting holographic displays as he accessed ancient systems. We could produce not just reactors but complete defensive platforms. The databases contain construction schematics for orbital weapons, planetary shields, automated defense satellites. Everything the ancients used to protect their worlds. How much power to activate the facility? Sheppard asked. Tony checked through the gene interface. It's got minimal backup power. Enough for lights and basic sensors. To bring fabrication matrices online, we'd need 10 arc reactors feeding the grid constantly. 10 reactors to make thousands, McKay calculated. That's acceptable return on investment. We do it. They spent the next 6 hours installing arc reactors, connecting them to ancient power grids, and initializing fabrication systems that hadn't operated since the ancients abandoned Pegasus. As the facility came alive, Tony felt it through the gene, a vast intelligence waking, assessing, beginning production cycles based on millennia-old programming. Fabrication matrices online, Zelenka reported. Production capacity, oh my. At current settings, we can produce 500 arc reactors per month. Or 150 complete drone weapons platforms. Or 75 orbital defense satellites. We can mix and match production based on strategic requirements. We just became a military-industrial complex, Tony said quietly. The ancients built this to fight a war. Now we're using it to rebuild what they abandoned. Not abandoned, Teyla said, studying ancient text on a wall panel. Listen to this, we depart not in defeat, but in hope. Those who come after will find these tools and perhaps succeed where we could not. May they use our legacy with wisdom we lacked. They meant for this to be found. They wanted someone to continue their fight. A rumble shook the facility, not seismic, but deeper. Wrong. The supervolcano, McKay said, checking sensors. It's entering an active phase. We triggered it by drilling, by activating the facility's power systems. The thermal output from the reactors must have. How long until eruption? Sheppard demanded. Hours. Maybe less. They had a choice. Shut down the facility, save themselves, and lose production capacity that could defend dozens of worlds. Or keep it running, risk evacuation being too late, but gain the ability to mass-produce defensive systems. We can shield the facility, Tony said, accessing ancient systems. There are planetary shield emitters in the database. If we fabricate those first, create a protective barrier. That would take days of production time we don't have. McKay protested. Then we fabricate them somewhere else and bring them here. Tony pulled up the network map. Installation Delta 7 on M7G 677 has fabrication capability. We transmit the shield emitter designs there, they start production, we gate the components here and install them before the volcano erupts. It was insane. Coordinate production across multiple installations, transport massive components through the Stargate, install planetary shields on a world about to explode, all within hours. Do it, Weir's voice came through comms from Atlantis. That facility is too valuable to lose. Make it work. They worked with desperate efficiency. Installation Delta 7 began fabricating shield components. Teams gated to Tyrannies, bringing pieces through manually, each one massive, requiring multiple trips. Tony and Zelenka assembled emitters while McKay coordinated power distribution and Sheppard's Marines established a defensive perimeter in case Wraith detected the activity. The ground shook constantly. Lava broke through surface crust a kilometer away, founaining into ash-dark skies. Temperature readings climbed. The volcano was minutes from catastrophic eruption. Last emitter in place. Tony shouted, connecting power feeds. Activating shields now. Energy barriers materialized around the facility, not just above it, but surrounding it completely in a sphere of protective force. Ancient technology designed to withstand weapons that could shatter planets, now protecting against geological forces nearly as destructive. The supervolcano erupted. Lava exploded from the planet's core, pyroclastic flows racing across the surface at hundreds of kilometers per hour. The facility's shields held, deflecting molten rock, absorbing thermal energy that would have vaporized anything organic. Outside the barrier, Tyrannies' surface became hell. Inside, the ancient facility hummed peacefully, fabrication matrices already producing the first batch of new arc reactors. Shield stable at 92%, Zelenka reported, voice shaking slightly. Power consumption manageable. The facility is secure. Tony looked at the volcanic apocalypse raging outside, at the ancient technology calmly producing weapons inside protective barriers, at his team, exhausted, ash-covered, but alive and triumphant. We just saved a factory from a supervolcano, he said. That's going on my resume. Your resume is already ridiculous, McKay pointed out. But yes, this is, actually impressive. Even by our standards. They gated back to Atlantis, leaving automated systems to manage production. The facility would run continuously, producing defensive equipment that would spread across Pegasus, then across galaxies, rebuilding what the ancients had begun. In Atlantis's command center, were updated the strategic display. 31 installations now active. 500 arc reactors deployed or in production. Sensor coverage extending across 60% of Pegasus. And the Tyrannies facility producing equipment that would accelerate everything exponentially. The Wraith will respond soon, she said. They can't ignore this. We're not just defending anymore, we're actively taking territory, rebuilding ancient military infrastructure, turning their hunting ground into a war zone. Let them come, Ronon said, and there was fierce satisfaction in his voice. For the first time in 10,000 years, humans aren't running. We're fighting back, and we're winning. Tony stood at the window, watching Atlantis's towers gleam in alien starlight. Jarvis whispered in his ear that Pepper had sent another message. Stark Industries was doing fine under her management, the Avengers were handling things on Earth, but everyone missed him. He'd return soon, he promised himself. Monthly visits, just like he'd agreed. But Pegasus needed him now, needed what he could build, the networks he could create, the hope he could engineer from arc reactors and ancient technology and human stubbornness. 3 million light-years from home, Tony Stark had found something worth more than money, more than fame, more than anything he'd built in that cave in Afghanistan. He'd found a war worth fighting, and a team worth fighting it with. And they were just getting started. 6 months after Tony Stark stepped through the Stargate to Atlantis, the galaxy had transformed. The ancient defensive network now spanned 94 active installations across Pegasus, each one powered by arc reactors, each one coordinating through a sensor grid that tracked Wraith movements across the entire galaxy. The Tyrannies facility produced equipment continuously, and Earth had begun implementing similar networks in the Milky Way using the technology Tony had pioneered. The Wraith had responded, as predicted. 3 major offensives had been launched against the network. Coordinated attacks by multiple hive ships attempting to overwhelm key installations. Each time, they'd been repelled. The ancient drones, powered by arc reactors that never depleted, had proven devastatingly effective. Wraith casualties mounted while human losses remained minimal. The Predators were learning, slowly and painfully, that humanity in Pegasus was no longer prey. Tony stood in Atlantis's command center beside Elizabeth Weir, watching holographic displays show the network's coverage. Golden lines connected installations, creating a web of mutual defense that protected billions of humans across hundreds of worlds. Colonel Carter reports that the Milky Way network is ahead of schedule, Weir said, reviewing Earth's latest transmission. They've activated 40 installations using your reactor designs. The IOA is calling it the Stark Defense Initiative. Tony smiled slightly. Catchy. Though I'd have preferred something more humble. You. Humble? McKay entered, carrying tablets and looking characteristically harried. The man who flew inside a hive ship and blew it up from within wants to be humble. That's rich. I've grown as a person, Rodney. You should try it. I'm perfectly evolved, thank you. McKay pulled up production schedules. The Tyrannies facility has completed its 2000th arc reactor. At this rate, we'll have sufficient power generation to activate every known ancient defensive installation within 18 months. Every single one. The ancients built 372 defensive platforms across Pegasus. We're going to restore all of them. Sheppard appeared with Ronon and Teyla, just back from a reconnaissance mission. The Wraith are changing tactics, Sheppard reported. They're no longer attacking installations directly. Instead, they're hitting worlds we haven't fortified yet, trying to cull populations before we can extend protection. Then we expand faster, Ronon said simply. Protect more worlds. Hunt them instead of waiting to be hunted. We're doing exactly that, we're confirmed. The Genii Alliance has provided ground forces to garrison 40 installations. The Travelers are patrolling sensor coverage zones with their ships. Even the Tok'ra have expressed interest in establishing operations in Pegasus to study our network. Teyla pulled up reports from allied worlds. Hope has transformed into action. Worlds that once hid now volunteer fighters, share resources, coordinate defense. The Athosians have established training programs teaching others to use ancient technology. My people are no longer refugees, we are warriors defending our galaxy. Tony thought about the child he'd seen vanish on P3X-421, dematerialized into a Wraith darts holding matrix. That had been 6 months ago. Since then, the network had prevented an estimated 12 cullings, saving tens of thousands of lives. The Wraith were being forced to hunt elsewhere, in unprotected sectors, while humanity fortified world after world behind defensive barriers. Jarvis, compile network effectiveness statistics, Tony said. The AI's voice filled the command center. Network operational efficiency, 97.3%. Wraith incursions successfully repelled, 41. Installations destroyed by Wraith attack, 0. Estimated human lives saved through early warning and defensive operations, 63,412. Projected casualty reduction over next solar year if current expansion continues, 370,000. Silence as everyone processed that number. 370,000 people who wouldn't die, wouldn't be culled, wouldn't age to death under Wraith feeding hands. That's worth every hour we spent building this, Tony said quietly. A chime indicated incoming transmission. The holographic display showed a figure Tony recognized from intelligence briefings, Todd, the Wraith commander who'd occasionally allied with Atlantis when circumstances aligned. Dar. We're, Todd's telepathic voice echoed through the command center, translated by ancient systems. We must speak. The Wraith alliances are fracturing. Your network has disrupted feeding patterns across Pegasus. Hives are turning on each other, competing for diminishing food sources. Civil war approaches. Good, Ronon said bluntly. Perhaps, Todd acknowledged. But desperate Wraith are dangerous Wraith. Some queens are discussing awakening the remaining hive ships, all of them. Thousands of vessels, converging on your network simultaneously. They would rather destroy you and starve than accept that humans are no longer prey. Weir's expression hardened. Let them come. We'll be ready. Will you? Todd's image studied them. I have fought your kind for centuries, Dr. Weir. Humans are fragile, short-lived, individually weak. Yet you have built something the ancients themselves could not maintain. A defensive network that actually works, powered by technology that does not deplete, coordinated by determination the ancients lacked when they fled. A pause. Some among my people believe we must negotiate. That humanity's resurgence requires accommodation, not extermination. Are you offering peace? Sheppard asked skeptically. I am offering pragmatism. Wraith cannot feed indefinitely on worlds you protect. We must find new sources of sustenance, or we face extinction. Perhaps there are alternatives neither species has considered. After Todd's transmission ended, the command staff debated implications. Wraith's civil war would weaken the species significantly, but it might also produce desperate attacks. Peace negotiations seemed unlikely given millennia of predation, yet Todd's pragmatism suggested possibilities. We continue building, Tony said. Expand the network, fortify more worlds, give humanity breathing room to grow stronger. Whether the Wraith choose negotiation or escalation, we need to be prepared for both. Later, alone in his quarters, Tony reviewed messages from Earth. Pepper reported Stark Industries had posted record profits. Turns out, exclusive licensing agreements for arc reactor technology to the US government were quite lucrative. The Avengers had handled several threats without him, though Steve Rogers admitted they'd appreciate his return for a major operation next month. Happy Hogan sent a rambling message about missing the boss and complaining about Pepper working too hard. Tony recorded his responses, scheduled his next Earth visit through the gate, and then pulled up personal files Jarvis had been maintaining, combat logs, engineering specifications, strategic analyses from 6 months of operations in Pegasus. He'd come to Atlantis as a consultant, expecting to observe and advise. Instead, he'd helped rebuild an ancient defensive network, revolutionized power generation for an entire galaxy, fought organic spaceships piloted by vampiric aliens, and found a team that challenged him intellectually while respecting what he brought to the table. Inson's last words echoed in his memory. Don't waste your life. Jarvis, personal log entry, Tony said. 6 months in Pegasus. Arc reactor network operational across 94 installations and expanding. Wraith threat diminished but not eliminated. Human worlds defending themselves for the first time in 10,000 years. McKay is still insufferable. Sheppard still breaks protocol in creative ways. Ronon is terrifying but loyal. Teyla reminds me there's grace even in war. And I finally understand what it means to build something that matters beyond money or fame or ego. He paused, looking out the window at Atlantis's towers, at alien stars, at a galaxy he was helping save. "I'm not wasting it anymore," he finished. "Not here. Not with this team. Not with this mission." The arc reactor glowed steady against his chest, that same technology that had kept him alive in Afghanistan, now keeping an entire galaxy's hope alive. Human ingenuity combined with ancient engineering, Earth's determination merged with Pegasus's desperation, creating something neither alone could achieve. Tony Stark had come to Atlantis to solve a power problem. He'd stayed to prove that humanity, given the right tools and the courage to use them, could stand against any darkness and build light from desperation. The Wraith had hunted humans for 10,000 years. They'd fed without fear, culled without consequence, ruled Pegasus as undisputed predators. That era was ending. The ancient defensive network spread across Pegasus like a constellation of hope, each installation a star, each arc reactor a heartbeat, each protected world a declaration that humanity refused to remain prey. The ancients had built this network and abandoned it. Tony Stark and the Atlantis expedition had found it, restored it, and made it stronger than the ancients had ever imagined. 3 million light-years from Earth, in a galaxy where monsters ruled and humans hid, Tony Stark had done what he always did best. He'd engineered a better future. And the work was just beginning. Indeed. Please hit the subscribe button for more stories.